اهلا وسهلا فيكم. اتس يعني عن جد اذا بدكم تقربوا انتم مبسوطين هون عند طيب الورا ما رح تسمعي شيء وما رح تشوفي شيء لانه كل سلايد سبيشلي لما نفوت بالفاينانشلز يعني رح تنامي ومبسوطه. عن جد تفضلوا ما رح تشوفوا اليوم كله فاينانشلز. شو في؟ رح نطفي الضوء اللي اوكي. كيف كان النهار امبارح؟ شو بتغيروا؟ يعني اسلوب are we going too fast? Is this the right pace? شو give us feedback. يعني اذا بنخفف شوي من we simplify more. ما في اي comments؟ ديتيل شوي. هلا الديتيل معك حق بس الديتيل رح تكون لما بنقعد معكم. لما بنقعد معكم مثل ما عم نقعد مع الشركات اللي بنشتغل فيهم كثير ديتيل. يعني غدا ما كانت هون امبارح بالانفنشر بنقعد 3 ساعات 4 ساعات وبنفوت ديتيل، بنرجع بعد جمعه وجمعتين بنقعد وبنفوت ديتيل. هدول الديتيلز اذا بنفوت كثير ديتيلز ما بنغطي بهالثلاث ايام، في a lot of topics فيها وانا عم يعني بس هي رح تكون بالامبلمنتيشن. اوكي هيدي غير فيدباك رح هلا رح يكون في اكثر ديتيل رح نشوف بالفاينانشلز. غير فيدباك تفضل. هلا البرايفت سيشنز depends on you. بس النقعة معكم يعني نحن كيف نشتغل اما في مشاريع you have programs. So these programs في شركات بيقدموا على programs وبينقبلوا بهالprograms. So these are and we'll talk to you when we talk. So after the workshop what you do is you have a number. اليوم كنا مع two companies CCHO and another one is وكلني قعدنا معهم كل واحد ساعتين ونص فيها. وكلني رب الابليكيشن for the programs. تعرف وين في grants بتقدم على الجرانتس وبتاخذ الجرانتس. $20,000 here $30,000 here. رح يجي مارك عون هو كومبوس بلدي اليوم. مارك عون لم كجرانتس فوق ال 250 300,000 اكثر شي $400,000 لم in terms of grants. So there is a lot of money available for you to be able to access through programs or through applications that you do. As grants. This is as grants. نعم؟ Non-investment. But grants is a form of investments. رح تشوف مثل ما عندنا term sheet ورح we're going to cover term sheet. You have term sheet مش بس for debt and for equity. في عندك term sheet لgrant. الجرانت يعني نحن رح نعطيك مصاري but there are specific milestones رح نتفق أنا وياك. يعني إذا أنت عندك شو بدك تعمل؟ بدك سنتين رح نشتغل معهم. اتفقنا بدنا نعطي 50,000 أو 100,000 أو 200,000 دولار. We would link it to specific milestone. So it's over 2 years or it's over a year. It could be over 6 months depending on the program. You have a series of programs. We have been involved into several of these programs over the past number of years. So you have, so it's grants, but في كمان debt funding وفي كمان, and we will go into the specific of each one. But there is a lot of money available in terms of grants, provided that you have the right value proposition, provided that you know how to package yourself. لا عم نحكي هلا and provided that you have the right contact. لو تعرف من وين الجرانت مين اللي عم بيعطوا جرانت اليوم بالسوق. This is information that and some companies are much better. We could help also with this. We could help on it because we have been involved in a number of these programs. Okay, Lama.
Guys, just not to have you enter your names again, just if you can highlight the cells where you entered your name yesterday in a different color so that we can keep track of those who came yesterday and those who came today as well for the certificate issue.
Did you send anything over email yet?
No. So just highlight the cells with your names again, just for me to know that you were present today as well, please.
It's important because if you don't do this, ما راح يطلع لكم certificates. So if you want to have a certificate, you have to do this because this will be communicated لجامعة الUSG. Okay? So because they will.
بس fill the name. And those who didn't come,
نعم.
and those who were not able to fill their name.
في يحيى هون ما مش الحال.
Also put your name again. So those who can't access this because of iPhone issues, please enter your name write your name on the sheets again.
اوكي بدنا نعذبكم مرة ثانية. الحق على لما شو بدي لكم؟ انه فكرت الاي تي ايشوز.
مع الابل.
الابل؟
مع كل
ابل فينا نفوت بس اذا نازل جوجل شيت ذاتس اول.
سي سا اوكي.
اوكي. All right, can we go to the transformation? اوكي اليوم ايه اوكي راح يكون في اليوم بين يوم وبكره مثل امبارح but it's going to be a bit of a different setup. We're going to introduce you to advisors. So these are people that could work with you, help you in being able to implement either to apply for grants or to do this. Maurice was here. Maurice helped a number of companies apply for grants and very successfly. And some of these grants were more than $250,000 that has agreed. So you have the ability to listen. So we're going to have about 3 per day. Tomorrow will be 4. And these are all advisors with specific, they will introduce themselves. They will tell you what is their field of expertise. And it's up to you. We will have, of course, a list of all those with their contact detail. It's up to you to reach out to them in case you will need to have specific support or specific advisory services. شو عملنا امبارح؟ هيدي transformation journey. Now again, transformation is important. Manna evolution. Why it's transformation is that you are taking a complete change in your mindset, in your business model, in the way you do. It's not business as usual. So transformation is when typically you're hit with a crisis, and we will cover a bit the tips on the crisis. So this is where we go. So the steps that we went is the gap assessment. What are the issues that we're facing? In here, you're going to have the article on the 12 M's. This will be one way. You could have other ways to look at the gaps. It's fundamental for you to understand what are the gaps that you're facing. The key milestone, what have you achieved so far? Rida yesterday presented the key milestone, what they have done. This is one example. You have different examples of these milestones. الكور competency مهمة لأنه الكور competency شو اللي بيميزكم من غير شركات. So what makes you unique compared to other companies operating in the market? And these core competencies is the answer to it. So what are the core competencies today? What are those core competencies in 3 years down the road? How are we going to bridge the gap? Manna hayne. This is a tough one to answer, to crack. And don't give me generic things. We need to have something that holds the ground that you could validate and you could protect. So this is core competencies is there. The key challenges, in some ways, is here. What are the issues that you're facing? We shared with you a number of these challenges, primarily to make it simple. Like most of you, it's access to it's access to capital, it's access to markets. So what else? Access to talents. What else? Talents, markets, capital. What else? Technology. Technology and innovation is going to be very critical. Without technology, this is why, you know, again, I look at InVenture, because what InVenture is doing, unfortunately, they're investing outside the country, but we want them to invest in the country. It's about technology. Technology is the name of the game. Innovation is the name of the game. How are you innovating? This is very important. So access to technology or access of use of technology in order to build innovation. Without it, it's business as usual. Business as usual, your long-term sustainability is not strong. So these are, in my mind, the 4 most important ones. The rest is access to advisors, access to legal support, whatever other support that you need. Access to funding, access to markets, access to talents, and access to technology to drive innovation. هدول كتير مهمين, and you need to look, and you need to not only to list those challenges, you need to see what they did. What did John said? This is the challenge. This is the impact of the challenge on my organization. And this is what I'm going to do to be able to fix it. I've put him, I know it's from a big corporation perspective, but trust me, it's the same approach that we need to use across all of you. For-profit and non-profit. Growth opportunities, extremely important. So if you ask me what are the most important ones, the core competencies that drives your differentiation will growth opportunities. اليوم كنا مع وكلني with other investors. They're going to raise, we helped them raise about $400,000 3 months ago. They're going to raise about $3 million next quarter. The $3 million, and we had a couple of three investors today with them. We brought these investors, have it. What were the questions that it was? بدنا نعرف where is your growth going to come from? اليوم خلصتوا السنة ب $2.4 million in terms of turnover that you have. How are you going to build from $2.4 million to $10 million? They're presenting $10 million for 2027. We want to know the exact details, how you're going to do it. Without this information, we don't trust your valuation. Now, the valuation will be driven by how can you validate your growth. If you cannot, and Yusr came and validated, we helped put it together over the past year. So in her case, it's expanding in new countries. In her case, it's expanding into new services. In her case, it's also expanding in terms of new countries, new services. And in terms of what is the other one? One is going to be the pure, the technology. So the technology, again, she's building this technology edge, which is quite critical behind it. So where is your growth going to come from? And show me what it is. Whether it's a same thing. Beit al-Baraka was here yesterday. You have some that are present today. What we're discussing with Maya is where is this growth going to come from? In her case, she wants to reach more artisans. She wants to also take the concept of Beit Kanz, Ma'al Matam, Ma'al two shops that they have, and be able to franchise it. Franchising is an important operation. You need SOPs, you need systems, you need a number of information. How are you going to make it happen to justify it? Because this is what investors are looking. They're looking at how are you going to grow and can you grow? Is this realistic? So مهمة. The value proposition is important. Why? Because they will be changing. Again, I look at InVenture, but I also look at Beit al-Baraka. When Beit al-Baraka started, it was purely an NGO focusing on taking donations, building houses that have been demolished by the explosion, providing food to people who didn't have the money, providing medicine to people who have the money. Then they realized, ما بتكفي. يعني had donation جايين, in about a year or 2 years, there might not be donation, which is the case. Donations are not existing. So what did they do? We need to have a center that has a profitable path, and this is why they created Beit Kanz. So Beit Kanz is doing extremely well, is growing, is extremely profitable, and this profit is used in order to be able to fund the other part of the organization. So this is a change in the business model. What did I venture, they did? They started in providing what? Taking sweat equity positions in different companies and doing this by providing those value-added services, typically business development, typically technology, typically some of the governance behind. And then they realize it's not enough. I cannot sustain. You know, حطوا $1 million من جيبتهم الشيرهولدرز ما عندهم أكثر من $1 million. هن من عمركم. So they're all young and this. So they decided we're going to look at corporate and provide these services to corporate. ليه؟ لأنه corporates have the means to be able to resolve it. So it's a change in the business model. So the crisis comes, and crisis is normally, where does it hit you? Where does the crisis hit you? In the cash flow. Who said cash flow? Okay, so it's the cash flow. So this is why today there is a lot about cash flow. Cash flow for me, at every board meeting that I assist, the first thing I'm asking them, show me your cash flow forecast. I want to see your cash flow forecast over the next 6 months or the next 9 months, and show me how you're delivering on your cash flow versus what you told me that you're going to deliver. So this for me is the way to gain trust. يعني فرجيني الcash flow that you have and show me that you know, because if you don't know and you're plus or minus 50%, you don't control your business. You not control. If you don't control your business, I'm not going to put money in your company. So I want you to build the trust, and the way to build the trust is looking at the accuracy of the cash flow forecast. في منكم كتير منكم مين عمل cash flow forecast بحياته؟ Come on, a few. Okay, but this is representing about 10 to 15% of the class. You cannot do anything in terms of sustainability without cash flow forecasting. يعني منا income statements ومنا balance sheet. But once you do your income statement or balance sheet, the cash flow forecast لوحده. So this actually you don't have to input anything. Everything is in your income statement and in your balance sheet. And then what it does, it takes this information and puts it into your cash flow forecast and does the cash flow forecast for you. And we even do the valuation for those who are for profit. We do the valuation. So what is the value proposition? Set strategic intent, you all have it. Vision, mission, but make sure that it reflects the reality. Make sure it's clear. and concise. We gave you the information that we have. Leadership assessments. Today, actually, we sat down with CCHO. We did the leadership assessment. قعدنا معهم مع كل الناس اللي عملوها, and then we shared the results. Even though we were here at the same time at midnight, Lama was working and completing the results. So we have the leadership. We looked at what are the strengths of the team, what are the development areas of the team, and where do they need help. And then for each of those leaders, we sit down and we put together a development plan. So how can they build on their strengths and how can they improve on the areas where they have development opportunities. هيدي مهمة ليه؟ لأنه I will never invest only in an idea or in a technology. At the end of the day, execution depends on this. And this depends on what? Depends on how complete is the team, how competent is the team, and how able is the team to be able to execute on this transformation plan that they have. So we spend a lot of time on this. And we want to make sure whether the team is complete. And most of the teams are not complete. يعني كلهم جايين مهندسين. أما كلهم جايين or from a, and you need to have strong technology people. But you need to have strong business development and sales people. You need to have strong operation people. You need to have strong finance people. It's very difficult to find people with all these skill sets. So you need at one point in time to look at maybe one founder, another founder. This is very important in order to be able to build credibility. I'm repeating myself. The balance scorecard, summarize it. Tfaddal.
What if we're waiting for the funding to complete?
Okay, so you can wait a long time, depending how successful you are. The funder would be better. For instance, Mitri is here. So he's one of the companies that are part of the program. We'll discuss the program. I'm pushing Mitri, get yourself a co-founder. لوحدك Mitri, it's not going to work. So find yourself a co-founder and do it. Now he has the funding. He has the funding. We even telling him نحن بندفع نص معاشه للزلمه، بدنا ندفع كل معاشه للزلمه لأول سنة، بس جبنا حدا. بدنا حدا to be able to complement you. Strong on the technology, you know your customers. We want to have somebody strong on sales and business development. Okay, so it's important to have a complete team. If it's and we will tell you right away what you're missing in the team. So, تفضل. Okay, this is, you see, the Y Combinator is great when you want term sheet, when you want, for instance, we're going to talk about SAFE. What is SAFE? Y Terminator حطه. What is the convertible debt? Y Terminator. They will give you and give the information. It's very difficult for a co-founder. Co-founder, it's like Michelle is next to you, you know, so Michelle is running it, she's also running who is going to be the person with her to be able to, for her, it's as difficult as finding the right husband and marrying the husband because it's a long-term relationship. You need to build trust. So typically what you do is you start on a project base, and this project base you realize that if it clicks, then you go on a more sustainable base. And then at one point in time you say, تفضلوا, let's agree on how we could have you as an equity partner in our organization.
I mean, where to find those?
Where to find. So the where to find is these are the people who have the time, and these are the people who have ideally the money, and these are the people who have the knowledge to be able to do it. Where I would find, if I'm in your shoes, first, and I'm introducing you, the people who are coming are all potential, either advisors or some of them could be potential co-founders in your organization. If you look at the list of all the, and this is available, if you look at all the accelerators, all the universities have accelerators. Veritech is USG, AUB, you'll have Maya who's coming from, Maya is working with this, the AUB, I'm sorry.
Maha.
So, Maha, I'm sorry, Maha, why Maya? Maya is, okay, so this is, so she will have a list of who are the mentors that she has. So these mentors are also potential lists. You have other organizations, USEC have their own. So these are all mentors that are spending the time, and some of them are spending the money. We have a network of business angels with whom we work. I'm sure that Maha has also her own network behind it. On it. So these are places. I will start with who are the people that are today active in this ecosystem. And what are the ecosystem for startups? It's the incubators. So who are incubating? Who are accelerating? So what is the list? ما في كتير. يعني الجامعات نعرفهم في 4-5 جامعات. The most important one, AUB, LEU, USG, USEC, and you have a few others, NDU. Every one of them have their accelerators and incubator, and every one of them have a list of either advisors or mentors. I will start with those, so that Okay, so you have, but it's at the end, هلا, you will see, you will meet people that are coming, presenting, and some of them are interested. Sami Baidoun, for instance, who are presenting tomorrow. I've been knowing now Sami for close to 20 years. So we hike together, we do a lot of things, but he was the first one to set up the first VC fund, not only in Lebanon, but across the region. He is available. Now the person is 80 years old, but trust me, if you hike with him, you will not be able to follow. I know each of his hike, we go up 1,000 meters, we go down 1,000 meters, 6 ساعات وانت مبسوط, يعني at the end of the day عملت 2,000 meters altitude difference, مش على طريق فوق الجبل وبتنزل بتحت الوادي. So this is, but he is, and he will be happy to come and help you so you're going to have Maurice, who is present, is also working on it. So you're going to have a number of those, and if you need more, you could come back and we could have a discussion. Okay, it's an important question because those typically will end up increasing your chances of being able to succeed. Any other questions? So we have the balance scorecard is the agreement. This is the agreement. You've seen it from Beit al-Baraka. You could see it. We showed you from Wakilni. We could show you from every single organization that we work with. I could ask Mitri to present his that we have. Even if you are not even existent, you don't have a single dollar in revenue, or you're non-profit completely, you have a balanced scorecard. The balanced scorecard is what you hold yourself accountable for in front of your key stakeholders that you have. Okay, this is what we cover. What are we going to do today? Today I'm going to go quickly through this. So we're going to leave the board governance. Because we're going to have a whole section on an executive program on board governance. Board governance is that you won't get anything. If you don't have advisory board معكم, it's not going to work. And the advisory board, a number of those people are willing to do it on a pro bono basis. لما بتقلعوا, it's not anymore pro bono basis. When I sit on the board of established organization, I charge, or they pay me $5,000 a day. But when we do it for the startup on this, we go on a pro bono basis. But we know that some of those are going to be successful and are going to grow and increase. So what you need is, without advisory board, you will not, because you need someone to continue working with you after you graduate from an incubator program, after you graduate from an accelerator program. You need to have with you 2-3 people that you trust, who can add value and who complement the skill set that you have. هيدي كتير مهمة. ما راح أقضي كتير وقت لأنه we're going to have another series of days covering this and presenting to you what startups are doing, what scale-ups are doing, because this becomes very important in terms of sustainability. And people, investors, would prefer to invest in companies where you already have a board governance foundation in place. Why? Because they trust more, and the value of this organization is higher whether you have governance or you don't have governance in place. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Lama will then carry with you the financial model. هذه كتير مهمة, but she will take it to you easy. Easy. How many of you, بس تنعرف, how many of you have done a financial budget? Okay, a few more. Those who haven't, okay, so is it going to be, but she's going to take it from ground zero, وراح تقلع. بس راح تقلع in a more graceful way. يعني you will see the way she speaks and the way I speak. يعني أنا مثل bulldozer food, وهي راح do it in a gradual way, which is very important, so that you will find financial statements. There is a statement saying that financial statements are like perfume. You sniff them, but you never swallow them. So don't. So it's you need to know how to sniff financial statement, and it becomes an art. And you will see after this session that it will start becoming an art. And so when you look at a financial statement of an organization, automatically I will tell you where are the problems that you have. So this becomes the second instinct that you. So we will cover this. We will. Cover a bit the funding gaps that we have, and then tomorrow we'll go on the investment side, the mapping, the data room documents, and the term sheet behind. Okay, all clear? Any questions on yesterday? Okay, if going too fast, don't worry. You're going to have all the documents, go through them. You're going to have the YouTube. We're going to have also these sessions being on our website. So what is risk management? Risk management is a process.
This is to wrap up on crisis management.
Oh, I'm sorry, crisis management. So this is another article that I've published. You will get a copy of it. I tried to summarize the article here. So what is the, if you want tips in crisis management, because we have been going through crisis. This is also based, USAID have asked me 4 years ago, when the crisis started, please go across Lebanon and help SMEs understanding what sort of tips to address the crisis. So we came up with this. The first one that you do is what we're going to do after this, is you need to know, before the crisis hits you, you need to know what are the key risk areas that you have. So you need to be aware of these risk areas. You need to make sure that you don't do it alone. Involve your stakeholders, and then you focus on the one that have high impact and high probability of happening. This is one, it's be prepared. There's no risk. You never know what's going to happen. We don't know what is the situation going to be in Lebanon in 2 months, in 6 months down the road, but we need to prepare. And a number of companies prepare. I have some companies that are even small companies that already have a plan. In case we don't have internet access, what are we going to do? Where are we going to locate? Is it Cyprus? Is it somewhere else? So all of those details needs to be taken into consideration, because it could jeopardize the survival of the organization. So this is part of risk. The second one is you need to have a clear and concise recovery plan. So this is clear actions that you will see a bit. John presented some of these actions that you do. SMART means specific, measurable, actionable, R is what? Relevance, and then time bound. Okay, so this is the one that you have. Be transparent, available. As the leader of the organization, you need to be. You need to go. You need to talk about it openly. Don't try to hide, because people's anxiety are very high. Remember the slide yesterday about change management. This is quite important. Manage your cash flow with all your passion. This, at the end of the day, is extremely important. You need to know what is the worst case scenario. You know, I work on boards of companies where the money has, like in Lebanon, but in other countries. Egypt had a very strong devaluation of the currency. Ghana had a strong devaluation of the currency. You have another of countries where you have capital control. You need to know what is your cash flow, and I want to know the worst case scenario of your cash flow. So what is the cash flow in the worst case scenario? And I want us to be ready on this worst case scenario. So you need to manage your cash flow with the problems. You need to look at internal funding sources, and these, we will go through it. So this could be the way you work with your suppliers, the way you work with your customers in terms of receivables, the way you keep your inventory optimized, the way you optimize your expense structure from fixed cost to more variable cost. All of these things are important to help you manage your cash flow. And we are, in some ways, experts in trying to find ways where you could squeeze your cash flow. Bootstrap. All of you are doing it. This is a state of mind. You have no other option in the situation of crisis. Bootstrap. Bootstrap means what? Means you are worth $10,000 a month before joining and creating your company. Maybe you're going to live on $500 a month. But you are a major shareholder in this company, and hopefully if you do survive, this $500 will be worth much more in it. So we will go in terms of looking at your cost structure and squeezing your cost structure as much as you can, because you don't have any more. You cannot pay this IT supplier and you need $50,000 to build your platform. It's fine. The value of your company is 500K. We will help you define. You have 10% of this to the outsourcing portion. So what you do is you open your capital structure to be able to do important investments where you don't have the money. We have different ways to look at it that we do. You look at your assets, you look at your people, who is core, who is not core, and what you're going to do with it. Next one. So Bootstrap, you'll have the article, manage your cash flow. Okay, diversify your customer base. Okay, this is where we look, don't look only, biomass is an example. Biomass akalu abniyah. So we will have so during the crisis, everybody had it. So what did they do? So we need to look at other markets. We cannot drop. They were at $4 million a year. They dropped to $1 million a year. What do? We look at other growth opportunities. Where are these growth opportunities? Export. Why is export important? They already have within the group the capacity to get to retailers in other countries. So you look and you're trying to diversify the customer base, and you look at which are the most probable customers or which are the more probable countries. Have a contingency plan ready. So for your scenarios, you will have the worst case scenario. What is the contingency plan? Reach out to experts and advisors, people who have gone through difficult times. So these are here. This is back to the board of advisors. Have the advisors and be able, and these people are here to help you navigate. Next one. Okay, communication is critical. We shared you an example of a communication plan. So it's a list of activities that you do with specific people at a specific timing in order to pass a certain message that you have. And this is important that you have it, and you do it in a way that is as formal as you could get, so as to make sure that people are kept informed. And strengthen your company culture. So this has to do with your positive can-do attitude. At the end of the day, if you see, and this is the strength of a lot of Lebanese, is you're not only resilient, but you also see the glass full, half full. And this is important, but at times your level is down. يعني خلاص بالبلد. يعني عديت عمري, I gave my years, I have kids that I need to brought up, I cannot do this. So it's always important to surround yourself with people who uplift you, and it's always important to be able to maintain this. Now I have here a book, I'm going to give a copy to Maha, and another copy to, this book is about the color, this is the one just published, so we have it, it's called The Taste of Wonder. Let our souls dance, quand nos âmes dansent là-dessus. So it's really about counting your blessings that you have and surrounding yourself with people that are uplifting you. What applies to my own personal journey, and this, by the way, I had about 80 friends who have contributed through the text and everything in it. So this needs to apply to you as an organization. It's what are you going to do to make sure that no matter what happens, you always have this boost to be able to have you go through this bump, because the bumps are here. The bumps will continue to be here in the years to come. It's not going, this I could promise you, that you're going to have bumps, but surround yourself with people who could uplift you when you have these bumps. Next. Any questions on this? Any questions, detail? And it's based a bit on the experiences that we had with working with different SMEs, foundations, and startup in the country. Any questions? Maha, do you prefer now or do you prefer later? So we had, what is your timing? Do you want to, I go through the risk management. Do you want to listen to risk management or you prefer to talk? So you have...
I think now is good.
Now is good? Okay. So let me introduce Maha. So there's a number of speakers. Now Maha is here and she's doing a bit, we share a lot in terms of values, a lot in terms of wanting to make a difference to the ecosystem on it. Maha is heading the AUB the Innovation Park. So what they do is they do a combination. They have specific programs. They basically incubate. They also provide advisory services. They provide help in terms of funding services. They provide mentoring services. She's going to describe this. She's working with a number of startups like yourself that are here that also have some sort of an innovation edge. And at the same, I've asked her to do two things: to summarize what it's all about, but most importantly, because she has been working with dozens of these startups, what are the key ingredients that those who succeed financially to sustain their business, what do they have that others do not have? So this is what I'm asking you to welcome. Maha, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Constantin. So, hi everyone. I'm Maha from AUB. As Constantin mentioned, we manage the AUB Innovation Park, which is AUB's incubator. We don't only incubate, we try to induce innovation, try to attract talent, try to spread awareness about this path. Hi. Hello. Try to spread awareness about this path, because typically students get into the university with that classic assumption that they are supposed to study their specialty and then get employed or continue their parents' business. So we tell them, no, there's an additional path that is like the most successful one, I would say, in Lebanon. That is the entrepreneurial path, because we have such an intellectual wealth in Lebanon, and the return on investment is magnificent, because wherever we go, we do well. We know that. So we tried to capitalize on this, and it was honestly like the key capacity at AUB that gave hope during the crisis. iPark started in 2019, like a week before the Saura. So you can imagine that journey, and it was magnificent to see to date 42 startups making it. 50% of them are surviving and doing well. 20% of them are generating revenue. And despite all, these startups gathered around 6 million plus in investment. and they are overall generating around 1 million plus revenue. It might be not a lot if you compare it to the Silicon Valley, but in Lebanon we know that it's good. Alhamdulillah, we're doing okay. So at AUB there are feeder programs, and we don't want to offer the services only for AUB talent and AUB innovative ideas. So what we do is that we do want that core team to have an AUBite member, but we really want talent from everywhere. We want people to work together. And we have something called Skills Match Hub, speaking of where to find the co-founder. And we have a person designated for that to match teams. When we look for teams, we always look for that combination because we want to make sure that the startups survive. They have a continuity structure, a continuity plan. So we always say you need to have the business skills along with the technical skills in the founding team. At first, you might have the idea, you might have half of the skills or quarter of the skills, but you need to eventually let go of your baby and give pieces of it to co-parents that will raise the baby with you. So many people with great ideas and they lack the technical part, they tell us that I want to employ a developer, I want to outsource the platform and I want money for that. Well, you know what? Even if I give you the money now, it might not survive. So you might want to consider a co-founder with you, like Constantin was saying. We've seen throughout the last 4 years, some of the startups drop out because most of them, they drop out because they are busy surviving. They are running out of cash. What are they doing to survive? Those who survived, what are they doing to survive? Well, first of all, I would say there's a huge community out there. They are all willing to help, especially entrepreneurs that been there before you. So just be there. Venture into ecosystems, into communities, especially our Lebanese community. This is what our entrepreneurs are doing. Many of them are solving problems by merely just sitting at iPark during the day. Like last week, we had like 5 founders. All of them have problems, sitting depressed at iPark. And when they told each other the problems, the 5 of them found solutions through each other's experience. And also had to entrepreneurs who have been there before you. For example, at iPark, we also capitalize on successful entrepreneurs. We bring entrepreneur in residence, and we constantly keep bringing successful entrepreneurs to talk to the startups, and they are in our mentors network. Because they have been there, they can show you like the survival points, the touch points. Also, I would say, look up a lot for the ecosystems where startups are thriving. It's easy to connect. For example, the Beirut Digital District, it's a very open community. You can even reach out to us. For example, AUB, we have now like 100 plus mentors, and they are all pro bono, and Constantin is one of them. What else? You might want, as also Constantin said, diversify your products. For example, I have startups that are working on an innovative product that takes long time to market. So you must know that. You must project that accurately. You cannot assume that if your product is heavy on research and development that you're gonna be in the market in 3 months. So you have to project that correctly, and you have to project in parallel what are you gonna do in the meantime in a way that you would keep on working on your product, but you can generate revenue at the same time. And we have examples of that where startups created other small products just to survive, to generate survival cash while working on their product. And again, financial acumen, it's very, very important. And we suffer from that because, we are a university, we have doctors, we have engineers who are sometimes arrogant, So if they know so much technical, they assume that they know it all. Well, you know what? The devil is in the financial statements, and you need to understand these and project them correctly. And I would say consult maybe 5 financial experts when you're doing your projections, and sit with at least 5 entrepreneurs before you, because there are hurdles that if you don't project, you will also drop and fall. I will also highlight what we are doing at AUB for our entrepreneurs to survive. For the startups that are heavy on research and development, like they take long time to market, we established a fellowship program that would finance the founder for a year with a survival stipend until the product is complete, so that the founders wouldn't have to go work and find money. We provide micro grants for product development. And most importantly, we send our startups to investment events and conferences where they succeeded, and they collected angel investments, they collected grants, they collected awards, and these 3 sources, the angel, the grants, and the awards, they were key for their survival. And honestly, I've never seen a Lebanese startup going to these competition and conferences and coming back empty-handed. So, did I miss anything?
Well, you covered it, but I'm sure they're going to have questions. Question, تفضلوا.
Statistically, 9 out of 10 startups go belly up. Your statistics seem to be very different, much better. Do you see or do you feel the presence of zombie startups in there?
Well, I would say it's because we're only 4 years old. So maybe in 10 years, the 50% will drop survival rate. And a key part of it is the selection of the startups. So when we select startups, we don't just bring technical experts to evaluate the ideas or maybe business mentors. Like more than half of our committee are investors. So we grill the startups over and over until we select them. So another advice is sit with investors even if you are not ready. The more you are grilled by investors, the more you are shocked by their questions, the more you don't find answers, the more you will be equipped for that one big time you would succeed. I don't know if I answered you.
Okay, but one more. Do you ever tell a startup, the founders, who, you know what, this is not going to work, shut down? Do you ever do that? Do you ever tell founders that have been running for 2 years in a startup, and then you look at it and you say, you know what, this is not going to work?
Well, the worst thing we did is like telling them that we advise you to do this and that, and when you are ready, come back, because sometimes it takes long time and they become so dependent. But that startups that we drop, who are not coachable. So it's very, very important for the founder to be coachable, because sometimes you trust your gut, you are very talented and you know what you're doing, you don't want to listen to anyone. And sometimes an investor could tell you something very harsh, you might say, let him go to hell, I know what I'm doing. There's a thin line there. You need to just at least validate what you are hearing, process it, make sure that if it's useful or not. And most importantly, one last advice, it's very important to decide what you don't want to do, what you are 100% sure that you don't want to do, especially in your financial projections and in your term sheet. Like, you might, sit with experts and they can tell you this and this and this term do not fit your situation. So you have to know what doesn't fit you. Maybe be open for what you don't know, but at least you must know what you cannot do.
Thank you. This is a dedicated copy. I hope this is a picture book, and at the same time, it's a few testimonials of. We look forward to our continuous collaboration. It's,
Thank you for having me, and please visit us at iPark. We welcome everyone, and we are open for collaboration. So
thank you. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to answer your question. I tend to be very straight. In some cases, I've told the owner, you need to close. You need to close. And it's important. It's starting to affect your life. It's starting to affect your health. It's starting to maybe affect your family life. Behind it, your pocket. So at one point in time, you have to be able to tell the person to pull the plug. And it's difficult. So for startups, it's difficult. But even for companies, you know, I've mentioned one of the jobs that I had, and you will see that when you work in companies where you have different companies, you do what we call portfolio analysis. And you will see that some of the companies have very high growth potential, very strong impact, and others have very little and actually destroying value. But a lot of the owners do not want because they're attached. It's like their baby. So we hired you, Constantin, in order to be able to save the baby. We don't want you to kill the baby. And my response to this, if you don't kill this baby, it's going to spread to others, and it will. So you have to basically convince owners and shareholders that at one point in time, if an organization is sustainably destroying value or not generating the impact that you want, we need to be courageous enough to pull it. If not, it will drive and it will affect the other organization in the country. So this is a tough thing, but it's your role as an advisor, your role as a board, because at the end of the day, boards are measured on the long-term value creation potential of organization, being it financial or being it impact. Go ahead.
So the way I see it is you actually, as investors, you would say, you know what, I'm going to cut my losses and I'm going to let this guy go.
Yes.
Is that how it works?
Yes, you do.
Okay, the other thing is I'm extremely impressed that your statistics beat the hell out of 9 out of 10 belly up companies, startups. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is not my statistics. This is Maha's statistics. My statistics are actually worse than yours. My statistics, because I've been around for 20 years, and we funded about 200 plus companies in Lebanon. My statistics is 95% of them do not make it. So this is the statistics that you have in terms of these. So what you need to do is, we know this. These are the statistics because of the crisis, because of different things that took up, because it's an illiquid market here in Lebanon. So this is one of the toughest markets to do. So the statistics are worse, and you need to be ready to cope with this. But what you need to do is the one or two, in some of the funds that we had, we see this fund, one company we managed to get in, and we got out about 2 years later at 13 times the value that we invested. So this one company is a unicorn that could help you compensate for the losses that you have with others. You need to have several of these unicorns around it. So that my statistics are worse than yours, and this might even get tougher. Now it depends also on the level. If you're purely talking startups, if you talk scale-ups, it's a different story. You know, so you have to, if you look at NGOs, it's a different story. So you have some NGOs that have been, because of the impact that they create, there is a greater tendency to get additional funding sources that you don't have access to as a startup. So expect these statistics. You want to say?
And the time span, because we're
And the time span. She's been here for 4 years. You know, when we started funding, Sami will be here tomorrow. We started in 2006, 2007. So we have history. So this history helps you in terms of validating what should be the right. I'm بتصوفر شوي. I don't know what's happening. أزبط هيك. It's okay. So look, and we need to continue.
We'll add one more thing to what Maha said on the social media. So iPark have organized several like small reels on their social media pages, on their Instagram, on their LinkedIn, and they also have a series of episodes on Virgin Radio where entrepreneurs come and discuss, talk about, give testimonials, give success stories, share their tips. So make sure you follow, because you will learn from other people's experience on it. Do you want to do
Okay, we could do this. Yeah, of course. Maha, thank you for coming. Thank you so much. Yalla. Thank you. Okay, so we have several case studies. These are case studies of companies that we have worked with. So this is real case studies. We're going to show data for those companies. We're going to also ask you to do some work on it. So one is biomass. How many of you are familiar with biomass? This is a Lebanese company. Only a few, huh? So it's, okay, biomass is okay, we'll go through it. So what have we been doing? I've been working with Mario for the past 5 years. So what we did is 3 types of support, and you will see this across. One is advisory support. So we provide advisory services in terms of what are the things. We helped in terms of putting the transformation plan together. We helped also on the financial management, relooking at their financial projections. We also helped in terms of raising debt and equity and preparing themselves. We also helped on the investment brokerage. And at the end, they raised about $1.4 million that we have worked. $400,000 were grants, $1 million was debt funding that they got. And we introduced them to a network of agri-companies, to potential partnerships for capacity building. And they've done the partnerships with some of them. We are also helping on the board. We assessed the board. We gave recommendation how to improve in terms of the board. They asked me to join the board. I couldn't at the time because I was conflicting. We were funding them as part of our program, but now we're... so these are the typical type of services that we provide. What do they do? Established in 2007, a grower, aggregator, processor, distributor, importer, and exporter of certified organic products. This is what they do. Committed to ethical and responsible farming methods. This is important. Offering quality, healthy, tasty, and environmentally friendly consumer food. Located in Lebanon, is actively promoting organic products and projects in Lebanon and across the region. They're starting their export. So what they do, they have the supply. This is quite important to get it. They have the farming. They do either through their own farms or they go through farms of others, of farmers that are present, or even some of you might have land that is available that today is not used. They will use your land and be able to plant. They have eggs, olives, fruits and vegetables, the eggs production behind, and then you have also some grocery product like sugar and honey. They do the packaging. This is in their site. If you've been to Batroun, they have a restaurant. Next to the restaurant is their packaging site. They have also some greenhouses where they plant in it. And then what they do is they sell distribution either locally or export. Now, Masoud has also been historically involved into the distribution. They have other companies that distribute the Bell products. These are the cheese product, la vache qui rit, etc., and others that they do. They also distribute different other beverages in the country. So this is their model. Next slide, please. This is where they're located. It's on top of the hill on top of Batroun. So for those of you that you know, so they have, but they operate 13 farms in Lebanon and has established for 45 plus farming partners. So where is the impact coming from? The impact coming from on these farming partners, training them, teaching them how to plant, teaching them how to water, teaching them how to do it. So these are some of the pictures that you have. This is the restaurant over here, organic plantations that they have. It's a very nice setting actually to take the family and spend the time, so because you could see it. What are the challenges? They're very similar to the challenges that you're facing. Everything from inflation, limited funding. I don't want to go through the list, devaluation. So all of those challenges were challenges that they faced. Next slide. Okay, so the question here is, what are the strategic initiatives that biomass should focus on? Okay, should focus on to enhance their financial sustainability. So this is, and the second question, what resources, core competency can biomass leverage to improve its financial position? Now let me give you a bit of a history. They were up to $4 million. With the crisis, they went down to $1 million. They moved to becoming in a loss-making situation. They had to borrow money, so they had some money, both borrowing internationally and they were able to borrow locally through the banks before the crisis hit, what they have. And now they're recovering. They moved from $1 million to $2 million and then on the path of revenue recognition behind it. So the question to you, you're sitting on the board, you're here to trying to advise them. What would be, from what you've heard, and I know it's very limited, what would be your recommendation about what should they focus on in order to get themselves out and to sustain themselves financially? في محلات إذا كنتوا تقعدوا في كتير محلات هون ما بندفعوا لكم Okay, so any recommendation on biomass? Okay, export is one. So what you do is trying to find out, how do you go about deciding which market to export? And what would you go about? How would you go about deciding where do we export? But again, so what would you do? So you would look at size of these markets. You would look at organic food. What would you do?
Several things. I would look at it financially as well and see the margins, the logistics
Okay.
to get there, the demand,
Yes.
the market,
Yes.
how much they're priced over there,
Yes.
and what's the availability, what's the competition over there.
Okay. So what she's describing, I forgot your first name. Mira. What Mira is describing is basically a mini transformation plan or a mini business plan. If I want to enter Saudi Arabia, these are the existing players in bioproducts. This is the pricing. This is how much it will take me in order to be able to export to these. Do I need a distributor, yes or no? So all this. So she builds together an investment case. And this investment case is presented to the board. This is the investments. And Lama will cover this in the next. This is important. So export is one way. Any other recommendation to biomass? Yes?
Yes, agrotourism is still not
Yes.
developed.
Yes.
I guess that biomass can contribute
Yes.
in this sector with other products.
Yes.
Donors would easily work
Yes.
with biomass on supporting micro business
Yes.
in agriculture.
Okay, so what you do here, this is you're creating a new service. And it's true, because what they do is they have the plantation, they have the restaurant, they have the setting, so there definitely could be a Fenacro, and they're going in this direction. They're now building, I was sitting in the plane next to Mario's brother, Carlo, and they're looking at building these cottages, built with traditional housing, in order to be able to attract people who wants to stay overnight, discover how they do the plantation, discover how they water, and this is very much so. Ecotourism, not eco, so agrotourism is definitely one area of growth. What else others? And this will be not only the restaurant, it would be the restaurant, you will have the cottages next to it, you might have also some trading that area. Any other areas?
We can study the consumer need and go one step ahead
Okay.
of the competition in the market.
Okay, so it's basically, they are already number one. They're already the leader in Lebanon, but you're right, it's trying to find out what other products would be of interest, and the way you do it through focus group. Get your customers together, they will tell you what they need and what they don't need. So these are good examples. Let me show you what they have done in terms of, so this is the bits of the exercise. So what we did is we looked at the, one is the financial excellence, the other one is customer excellence, so you're getting back to the balanced scorecard approach. This is operational excellence, it's about efficiency, and this is about employee. So these are the initiatives that came up. They tried to optimize their cost. So trying to see what are the costs. So they went into solar versus fuel. So this is one. They got grants in order to get their solar. So this reduced the, so this is quite important. They updated the truck fleet. Why? Because a lot of these trucks were becoming very obsolete, very high maintenance costs. It didn't make a lot of sense. They deleveraged their debt structure. And this is what I've been pushing with Mario, is get your debt down. This is the best time to get your banks out of the way, negotiate, settle it at 10 to 15% and move out of it. Reduce the cost of debt by negotiating lower rates, or even have those who are coming from foreign debt to do it at a subsidized rate. In terms of today, it's 10 or 12%, do it at 2 or 3%. So we restructure the debt. Scaling up the volume, so increasing revenue through aggregation, diversification, export, you mentioned it, farming capacity increase, finding new farms. What are the new farms that we could have access to and being able to leverage and get the... So this is in terms of helping the financials. Here, in terms of the commercial, is what you do in terms of building the farming capacity. So contract farming is quite important. So look at who are those farmers, increase the number of farmers. He started with 5, moved to 10, now he's at 50, we're trying to push him to 100. So this, this is important because it would help increase his production capacity. Product farm certification of contract farmers, this is quite important. This is training that they have. Product strategy, which is basically product positioning, pricing, this is what you mentioned. What should be the new product? Are we pricing them correctly? How are competition pricing it? Does it make sense? And of course, the export orientation to access foreign markets. Operational excellence, what we want to make sure here is ensuring social, economic, and environmental impact. So water, energy savings, soil presentation, they've been measuring it, tracking it. Why? Not only because it makes sense, why? Because a lot of the programs and the grant that he got was because of the water savings, the energy savings, and the incremental food. So this ESG impact is important, and all of you needs to think, what is the impact that you're creating? How are you measuring it, and how are you scaling it? This is important. Working capital, this has to do with receivables. For those of you who don't, you will know after Lama presents. The payables, this is your suppliers, this is your inventory, so that your cash cycle goes down. Where is the most problem of Lebanese company during the crisis? Is all their cash were where? Either in the receivable or they were in the inventory. And payable suppliers said zero. We're not going to provide you any funding capacity. So you find yourself with high receivables, high inventory levels, and all your cash is there. It's a question of trying to reduce it, and this is one of the things, for instance, with John and the Debane group, Agri Group is really, we squeeze down these receivables, and we really squeeze down the inventories, because this is where the cash was, and it's a difficult thing to do. So it might not apply to startups, but it will apply at one point in time. And I'm not going to go through it. Automation is important. Automation saves a lot. So what are the islands of automation that you could do, that you have? Product portfolio optimization. What are the products where you're losing money? Maybe you need to get them out of the market. And then finally, in terms of the organization, salary structure, they reviewed the salary structure. They were losing people. How to adapt it, looking at expanding the team and making a higher level of loyalty behind. So this is example of what you would expect. So this is a company. They went through it, they assessed the different risk elements, and what they have covered here are specific actions in order to be able to reduce the risk. This is a template that we would like you to use in terms of your companies. It's working. This is very good. Any questions? تفضل.
So the main challenge was they weren't selling that much in Lebanon.
They had different challenge. One is they had a balance sheet which was weak because of high debt. Number one. They had an income statement where their operating expenses was very high compared to the drop in revenue. So you have a certain expense structure, your revenue drops from 4 million to 1 million, and if your costs do not change, you're hit into the bottom line. So they had an expense issue, they had a debt issue, they had a drop in revenue, which means that looking at export orientation or new products or new markets behind it. So they had accumulation of these different challenges.
So they were having a hard time to sell because of their high prices, because of their high expenses?
Okay, it's a combination of two things. They tend to be positioned because they're a market leader in terms of the prices that they have. They did adjust the prices. So part of it would be a pricing issue. Part of it also is a question of the market for bio products maybe dropped. A lot of it is the people that did not have the means to be able to afford. As الكيلو البندورة عم بشتري بنص دولار ليه بدي ادفع دولار أما دولار ونص دا اشتري. So these are the sort of questions that could come up. So part of it is pricing that you have to, but if you have a brand, you need to protect your brand. You cannot go in terms of diluting the value of your brand by trying to compete with other products that do not have the same value, that do not have the certification. And people are willing to pay if there is a differential in terms of the taste or in terms of the pollution or other aspects that comes with it. Okay? Yes?
What is or who are the certification for
Agri products? Okay.
not agri, the
Bio. Okay. We
certifies organic.
yes. I'll put you in contact with Mario. He'll give you. There is a list of them. So you have different lists, and some of them are more relevant than others. So it's important. It's a good question. I don't have the answers. So, but I would be happy to put you in contact with Mario, and he could provide you the answer. It will be good for you to go and to visit the site, because you will have, and this will be the. I don't have the answer. I know that there are. Do you remember the name of the bodies that certify bio products, or we don't? We don't. Yes.
It's the Italian certificazione.
It's the what?
Italian certificazione biomasse sfruttate.
Okay, so this is one. There might be other sources. Which one? Is this one? Okay, so you have the answer here. This is great. I should ask the room. Okay, so CCP, so this is the answer to your question.
Yeah, but I have a question, because if I'm in Saudi Arabia and I want to import this, why would I trust a Lebanese certification compared to a French?
But this is not Lebanese, this is Italian. This is Italian. It's Italian, so this is, but it's a good question. Okay, now we're going to have a number of these cases. Now, every one of the case studies are companies that we have been working with on a number of years. So we try to simplify it in presenting it to you. And ideally, what we would like is some of you to become the case studies in the future so as to see ways where we could learn from the experience of others, because I believe very strongly in this. Risk management is a process. What is this process? First, you identify all the risk categories. Second, you measure them and you map them according to probability of happening and impact. Then you look and focus on the one that has high impact, high probability, and then you decide what is the contingency plan you're going to go through it. This is a process that all of you have to go through. Because the first thing that any of the investors would ask you, what can go wrong? And if you say nothing is going to go wrong, he's going to go to the next venture. So you need to be prepared what can go wrong that we have behind it. So the first one is called the risk catalog. This is the list of the risk. The second one, we call it the heat map. So these are the area, the red part of it, where we have high probability, high impact. The third one is the risk assessments. We assess those risks. And then finally, we find the mitigation plan. Most importantly, we never stop here. Most importantly, what we do is we assign the responsibility to implement each mitigation measure, and we make sure that we have clear timing for these measures, and we make sure we follow up. If you don't, so every board, twice a year, you have risk management framework. I'm sitting down with the chairman of the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee in the Bani Ali Group on Monday, and we're going to prepare the agenda for this. And this is fundamental portion that you have, not only for big organizations, specifically for startups, because you have much higher risk. Next one. So I'm not going to take, the different types of risk. I don't want to, you're going to have all the slides. So you could have strategy, financial risk, organization risk, operating. So this is the way to put your risk into different buckets. And here you have examples. So for instance, on finance risk, you think that you're going to get $500,000 next month. Guess it. It's next month, but in a year down the road. So this is typical delays. What is this doing? It's basically putting your company in a very difficult situation because of your cash flow expectations is that this money is going to come. And in most of the cases, you're always wrong in terms of the timing of the ability of the funds. So this is an example with one of the companies. I don't want to go into the details. So you list your risk. You could, it could be more specific than this. You will then decide whether the probability is low, medium, or high, and whether the impact is low, medium, high. Next slide. Then what you do is you've mapped them. So here, in terms of the impact, 0 low, 6 is high. You have 0 to 6 in terms of probability, and then you focus on those. This is the heat map. So what are those? Significant risks to the business, close monitoring by the board and management, urgent action needed with mitigation measures. This is why you focus. You need to be aware of the others. So once you know what is your risk, then you need to decide what is your risk strategy. Some companies have a higher level of risk. Other companies do not tolerate a risk. So it depends, and this is driven by whom? Who do you think drives the risk of a company?
The market.
No. Who decides on the risk that you're willing to take? The management, the owners. The owners decide. And I work with companies where the owners are risk averse. I work with other families where the owners are very much risk takers. Why? Because it's going to be important in the risk strategy. Next slide. So here is the risk strategy. So in some cases, what you want, some of the people would tolerate this because it's, but some people can tolerate over higher depending on your risk appetite. So the way you do it, tolerate means I accept it. I'm going to take this risk, I'm going to price for this risk, and I'm going to go ahead. Transfer it is I transfer it to another party. So if, I don't know, there is a credit collection, and I have a collection agency who's willing to buy it with an 80% of the value of my receivables, I'm delegating this risk. Treat it is that I try to address it. Here is to avoid and to terminate. We're going to go through mitigation actions. Next one. So these are the risks. These are examples of mitigation actions. Significant customer contract or supply concentration. A number of companies had some customers accounting for 20% of their business. I had some medical companies, hospitals, where the government was accounting for more than 60 or 70% of the business. What are they doing? They have all their cost structure behind it, diversify clients and supplier base. So how do you do it? We go up about mapping and doing segmentation and going through the board. I don't want to go through the list. You need to, but these are examples of what you have in accounting, in finance and cash flow. You have the risk here, you have the mitigation action. This is for you, room to look at it, and then you decide what makes sense, what applies to me, and what am I going to do about it. Next one. then this is the table. All of these are templates for you to use. So these are the templates. You have the risk. What is the impact? What is the probability? What is your risk mitigation? What is important is here. Who is responsible? And when is this going to be dealt with? So there is timing. This is a complete risk management table. Listing the risk, listing the impact and the probability, and being able to, and we'll show you examples. So this is, for instance, a specific example. I forgot which company it was. It was a Lebanese company because I see IM Capital and Cedar Oxygen. So delay in attracting investors' funds. Typical. Most of you will have it. So delay. What is the impact? Significant overall impact on functioning and development of the company. Why? Because you don't have the cash. That you restricted the ability to invest in capex and capacity expansion, cash flow working capital, OPEX, or hiring people. So what do? We explore alternative funding sources with the likes of IM Capital, Cedar Oxygen, or the business angels that we want to do. Who is responsible? CEO, when? In Q1. We already sustainable to gain further grants. So there is grants. Where can we get more grants from it? Who are the sources of these grants? Who applies for those? Active follow-up with business angels and others to sign term sheet and launch a special purpose vehicle. So this will be CEO, CFO to lead, and this is the timing. So these are specific risk mitigation action for the risk that you have and the impact. Next one. Okay, this is a company that I work with. It's a hospital. It's one of the successful ones that I've been working with, Niaho. I've been with them for 10 years. It's a company where I also invested. So what we have, and it's, so what they did is they took the list, they've put the impact, they've put the probability, they looked at the multiplication of impact by probability, and then they looked at the risk mitigation. These risk mitigations end up being what? In the balanced scorecard, in terms of key strategic initiative, so that's to make sure that they get monitored and get implemented. So it's not only about reporting it. This is the biomass one. The biomass, we have done the exercise. We went through, we set the risk. Key man risk, if CEO of any reasons become incapacitated, if something happens to Mario is the main driver of it. He's a great guy. But my concern with Mario is he's under a lot of stress. And I want to make sure that he is able to take and to make, we need a number 2. So what is the impact? Serious impact. Disruption. A CEO currently is involved in most aspects of the business and makes most decisions. Most of you are in this situation. If something happens to you, if I'm an investor, I might lose all my investments. So what are we going to do? Redesign organization structure to appoint a senior executive in charge of all the supplies. So we need to have people who could delegate to. Confirm potential temporary replacement to CEO with delegation of authority in case of accident holder. So this is what we're planning, a plan B. Appoint member from a newly reformed risk audit and finance committee to oversee board action, develop business continuity planning, etc. that we have. So this is typical examples of risk management framework applied to organization. For-profit, non-profit, startup, large established companies, it's all the same process. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so what are the tips? You need, in some way, I don't want to make it too formal because a number of you, but you need to have some sort of a risk management policy. And the policy could be what you've seen, is we need once a year to be able to list these risks, to classify the risk, to agree on mitigation action, and to review it with your board. Instill a culture of risk awareness. You need to be aware. A lot of people say we don't have risk. All of you are facing risk. You're not aware of them. I don't want you to be aware of them when it's too late, because then you might be in a situation. Promote open communication. Ensure all, but this is more for established companies, are well informed. Always focus on the high probability, high impact. Integrate risk management into the organization design making process. Conduct regular reviews and updates to risk management. Conduct scenario planning exercises. What is the worst case scenario? And learn from past risk management mistakes and take responsibility and ownership. So these are the tips that you have on risk management. It's an important aspect. And normally in your pitch deck, you never have a slide on risk. But trust me, every single investor is going to ask you, what are the key risks that you're facing? Where can your organization derail? And what are your bottlenecks, or what is your Achilles heel that you have in this organization? And if your answer is, I don't know, or in the answer, we don't have any, trust me, it's not, you lose a lot of your ability to convince the investors or the donors to invest in you. So take risks seriously. You could make it very simple. You know, it could be 2 or 3 key risk areas that you have. Discuss it with your advisors and make sure that you have a clear plan to address it. This is your worst case scenario. You need to be prepared for worst case scenario. I've been working with Lama for now close to 2 years, and we always, when I look at it, the way I look at any situation, I look at the worst case scenario, what could happen, even on a personal basis. At one point in time, I had some medical health issue. What is the worst case scenario? I could die in 2 months or 3 months down the road. Okay, if this is the scenario happening, what am I going to do today in order to be able to make this death as smooth and to myself and also to the others? So this is part of scenario planning that you have. This is the worst case, and this is a real life case situation. So what you do is you take these steps. So if we tell you that you have 3 months to live, what would you do? So a number of you will come. What would you do? So you have 3 months to live. List those things that you need to do. Now, if it's not 3 months, it's 1 month, what do you do? So these are the sort of questions that you need to ask, not as drastic as this, but because it's the survival of your organization that is at stake. So take it seriously because it could happen to you personally, but it also could happen to the organization. Next one.
Thank God.
Okay, no, go to the next. Okay, all right. So we have tips and we have the done. Okay, so we have covered it. We're not going to cover the governance one now. So this is an important one. We will be covering in another sessions that we will have here at UHD, probably in this room. It's an important one, and because this is what we're driving. We're driving by encouraging a number of you to set up. You know, Michel is from Arc-en-Ciel, we have people from Beit el-Baraka, so when we sit with Michel's boss, we're having dinner, by the way, at Arc-en-Ciel tonight, invited about 60 friends coming and celebrating different birthdays. Maurice, in the end, is his birthday. You could wish him a happy birthday tomorrow.
Now you can present.
Yeah. So we have. So what we need is really learn from others that have been around. Okay. So I shut up now. You're going to go through the graceful and penetrating teaching of Lama. Listen, it's a new language. For some of you, it's going to be a bit painful. You have absolutely no choice but to learn this language. No choice. If you are serious about wanting to raise capital and sustain financially, you better learn this language. We're going to go the easy way, the smooth way, give you examples, give you hand-holding, but at the end of the day, you need to find somebody in your team or somebody in your advisors who can speak this language or at least translate it for you. Thank you.
I promise one thing, I'm not going to talk about death. So, I know that some of you have already done budgets, you're already familiar with financial statements. For those, Mali, bear with me just to make sure that everyone in this room are on the same pace. I'll go over the basics of financial statements, and then we will reach the financial model with the assumption how you will build your financial model and how you will do the forecast. So we have three types of financial statements: balance sheets, income statements, and cash flow statements. The first one is the balance sheet statement. Anyone not familiar with what a balance sheet is or the components of a balance sheet? Okay, so the balance sheet has three pillars. The asset side, which is what we own. So these are this is anything that the company owns, and this is ranging from cash that you have or bank accounts that you have, stock that you have, so inventory, raw material, finished goods, or work in progress. The receivables, so if you're selling on credit, the money that you need to collect from your customers that you haven't collected yet, but this is something that you own, so you have it on your asset side of the balance sheet. And then you have the fixed assets, which is plant, machines, property, buildings, equipment that you have, furniture, laptops, so everything that goes under property, plant, equipment. And then you have the goodwill, which is actually the value that investors would pay above your book value to take into account the value of your company. So this is the asset side. On the other side of the balance sheet, you have the liabilities. The liabilities are what you owe others. Typically, you owe your suppliers if you are also purchasing your raw materials, your stock from suppliers on credit. So this is the money that you haven't yet paid those suppliers. And the other counterpart is debt investors or banks. So if you have taken a loan from a bank or from a debt investor, these will go into your liabilities. This is long-term debt, overdraft, short-term loans that you've taken from debt holders. The last pillar is equity, which is the difference between your assets and liabilities. This is what you own as shareholders. This is the value of the company. So you take assets, you deduct liabilities, and you get to shareholders' equity. Usually, the balance sheet needs to balance. So the asset side should be equal exactly to the liabilities plus equity. And this is a snapshot. So you see the balance sheet. It's a position in time. So at the end of this month, what is my balance? What do I owe? What do I own? And what is left? On the other hand, we have the income statement, which is more. Let me go into the balance sheet. So this is an example of a balance sheet. So this is the asset side. This is the liabilities and equity side. Under the asset side, you have cash and bank accounts, receivables, inventory, and then you have those fixed assets, which is the machinery, the equipment, the furniture, the land, etc. On this side, you have the liabilities. So these are your overdrafts and loans and the payables from suppliers. And then you have your equity, which is typically the money that you have put in the company. So this is the capital stock, the paid-in capital, the money that you have invested as founders into the company. Then you have the retained earnings, which are the accumulated profits that you haven't distributed. So any profit or loss that you have made over the years and that has been on your balance sheet. And then the profit of that exact year. So if we're looking at the situation end of 2022, this is the retained earnings would have all the profits that you have generated since inception until today, while the profit of the year is the profit that you have generated in 2022. What do we see from a balance sheet? We see how large the firm is. So what is your asset side? What is the size of your balance sheet? We see also how are you funding your assets. So are you taking more debt or more equity? You see how leveraged the firm is. So from the liabilities and equity section, how much is the proportion of debt versus equity? And you see also how capex heavy it is. So some companies don't have any investment in machines and equipment and so on, while others have a bulk of their assets in tangible fixed assets. Those startups that are in software development under the asset side of the balance sheet, under the fixed assets, you would have intangible assets. This is the money that you have spent over the years on software development, on developing the application, the platform, and that you have. So this is the example of a balance sheet. On the other side, you have the income statement. So this is the second financial statement. This is a flow. So while the balance sheet is just a snapshot at one point in time, the income statement would show you the flow over this period, over this year, or over this quarter or month. What have you done what have you generated in terms of sales and revenues? What have you spent in terms of expenses? So these are the salaries, these are the raw materials, the operating expenses, the utility bills, the rent, all the expenses that you have incurred here. And if you remove your expenses from the revenues that you've generated, this is your net income, this is your bottom line, and this is the money that you have generated. An example of an income statement is this one. So the first line is always the sales. So this is sales, revenues that you generated. The second item is the cost of goods sold. These are the expenses that are directly related to your sales. So for example, if you're selling manufactured products, you have the raw materials, they go into cost of goods sold. The packaging would go there. The salary of the person on the manufacturing thing goes into cost of goods sold. So these are the costs that are immediately related to the sales that you're generating. The first net figure here is the gross profit. So this is the top line. This is without incurring any other expenses. So just revenues minus the cost related to those revenues, what profit are you making? This is the gross profit, and we usually look at the gross profit margin. So how much is that as a percentage of your revenues? Then we start removing the operating expenses, travel, salaries, rent, marketing, legal, utilities, you reach this level here. So gross profit minus all of these expenses will let you to some item called EBITDA. So earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. This is what we call the operating profit, and it's a very important measure on the income statement to look at, because this is before you account for your funding cost or interest expense, before you account for your taxes, before you account for depreciation, this is the profit that you're making out of this business. We also look at the margin. So this is the EBITDA margin, 26%, which is also as a percentage of your revenues. And investors would look at your gross profit margin, at your EBITDA margin, and at your net margin to see how profitable you are. So what are we learning from the income statement? We're seeing how large the firm's operations is, what is the revenue figure, how much sales does the company generate, how profitable it is. So after removing all the expenses related to running the business from raw materials, from cost of doing business, and other operating expenses, what are you left with? What kind of returns would investors be getting on equity or also return on assets, and how efficient it is, how efficient are the operations of the company. The last statement is the cash flow statement. It will take some items from the balance sheet, some items from the income statement, and it will give it to you. The difference is it's only looking at cash. So income statement, there's a line called depreciation, which is the fact that assets lose value over time. However, the cash flow statement is only looking at cash. If you're selling on credit, the cash flow will not show you this. So the sales that you will make when you sell on credit, because you have receivables against it, these sales will not show into your cash flow. Payments, expenses that you incur that are for your suppliers, if you're also buying from suppliers on credit, these will not appear on the cash flow. So the cash flow statement is pure cash. What cash is coming in, what cash is going out of the company. We divide it into 3 buckets. The first one is cash flow from operating activities. It's taking the income statement, so the bottom line of the income statement, it's adding back non-cash expenses, and you reach the cash flow from operating activities. The other component here is what's changing at the level of what we call working capital. Working capital is accounts receivable, so what you need to pay what you're receiving from your clients, accounts payable, what you need to pay to your suppliers, and the inventory. So today, if I'm running the company, I'm buying inventory, cash is going out of the company. So this is a cash outflow. If I'm selling this inventory, the inventory will decrease and I'm receiving cash. So it's an in and out game. If I'm collecting money from my clients, this is cash coming into the company. So the working capital is a positive income, as a positive flow into the company. So here we're taking the income statement in terms of bottom line, and we're taking any changes in the balance sheet and the current assets of the balance sheet, so receivables, inventory, and current liabilities, which is accounts payable, and we're seeing the difference here. The second bucket is cash flow from investing activities. When I'm purchasing an equipment, when I'm purchasing a machine, a truck, this is not accounted for in the income statement, so it wouldn't show here. But this is cash that is going out of the company, and this is how we account for it here. So on the other side, if you're selling a machine that you have, this is cash coming in, and you need to account for it here. The last bucket is financing activities. So this is when you raise funds, whether debt, whether equity. So when you're taking out a loan, when you're taking out a loan, this is money coming into your balance sheet. So this is a cash inflow. When you're paying dividends, when you're paying interest expense on your loans, these are cash outflows. So the idea behind the cash flow, and usually we construct a balance sheet, we construct an income statement. The cash flow is a result from the 2 previous financial statements. So this is an example. The first bucket is cash flow from operating activities. So net income, we add back the depreciation expenses. This is the change in working capital, inventory, receivables, and payables. And we reach the cash from operating activities. We account also for the cash changes from investing activities. This is when you purchase equipment, you purchase machinery, or you sell. And this is here. And then you have the cash flow from financing activities, which is money that you have borrowed or equity funding that you have received. And this is the change in cash. So this cash flow statement will give you what is the cash position of the company at the end of the period. It's like the income statement in terms of a flow, so it's not a snapshot, it's a flow during a certain period. It will tell you what was the balance what was your cash balance at the beginning of the period, what changes have occurred along these three buckets, and what is the resulting cash balance that you have at the end of the period. So what is it telling you? It's telling you where is the change in cash coming from operating activities, from investing activities, or from financing activities. It's telling you how much cash is actually coming in, how much cash is actually coming out, and where are you spending this cash. I will pause and take any questions at this stage. تفضل. Why do you need a cash flow statement? So you definitely need a balance sheet. You definitely need an income statement. One of the three, which is the most important statement, is the cash flow statement. You want to know how much cash you have. Yesterday, the speakers discussed it, talked about it in length. You need to know what is your cash position, and this is the basis of your operation. So you need to know what are you expecting in terms of cash, how are you spending it, to know to be able not to go bankrupt, not to go bust. And it's not enough to look at profitability. So typically, investors would look at the income statement to see how profitable you are, what sales are you generating, how big are your expenses, but they actually need to know how is the cash flow changing within the company, what is the cash coming in, what is the cash coming out, projected, past, and how are you managing your cash efficiently.
How frequently do we update the cash flow statement? How do you decide how frequently to update it?
Very frequently, as frequent. With some of the companies we're working with, we're doing it on a monthly basis, but internally you have to look at it on a weekly basis. So you need to have this view very, very short term, especially at the beginning. And you have to be able to manage it very carefully. You have to have it very frequently. We have the financial model looking at it at a yearly basis, so a cash flow based on yearly, but we do it even more granular to make sure that we have this visibility. One of the companies that we have funded, they came back to us and say we wanted. So they took investment from us. They came back 3 months later. We need more cash. This they had not forecasted because we didn't look at it as granularly as 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. So as frequently as you can do it, the better, because you need to know what is the position from a cash perspective.
How long should a startup be patient to accept negative cash flow? 1 year, 2 years?
It depends. It depends on the financial model. It depends on the forecast. Usually, you're not expected to be cash positive, and this is why you rely on grants. This is why you rely on funding. So typically, you expect the first few years to be cash negative, and this is the nightmare of all founders, to go and look for cash to get funded. However, if at year 4 you still have a negative cash flow gap, then it raises a question that you're not financially sustainable. And we will address now how can you become financially sustainable internally without having to access capital from external sources. It depends on the business model. It depends on what industry you're in. If it's and it depends on how fast are you scaling. As fast as you scale, as big as fast you will be able to decrease the cash flow gap.
I can give an example of a company that went IPO on the Toronto Stock Exchange, a startup. To answer your question, I can give an example of a company I know very well that went from startup to IPO in 4 years. This is very exceptional. It doesn't happen. It's really exceptional. They rode the pandemic wave in 2021, got listed on Toronto Stock Exchange. Today, so that's another 3 years later, they're still EBITDA negative. At initial public offering, and they went on the stock market. So this is how good they were. They were able to list, but today, so 7 years into their history, a startup that managed to be listed on the stock exchange is still cash flow negative. So there is no, like Lama said, there is no rule. investors are looking at so many other considerations than just positive cash flow. Of course, they're expecting.
It's not like an important indicator to be always positive.
It depends on what activities are you doing. So why are you cash negative? Is it because you don't have a good financing, a good management of your expenses? Is it because you're not making your sales figures? Or is it because you're investing so much because you're scaling the company, you're acquiring machines, you're going to new markets, so you're spending to finance your growth? If this is the case, then by all means you can be as negative, as cash flow negative as you want and get the funding for it. If the problem is efficiency, then you have a problem. Any other questions? Is it clear? About the Chinese, or is it? Yes.
So the balance sheet reassures value of the company.
Correct.
What you owe, what you own.
صح.
And then the income statement is operations. So how much you have as income versus the expenses and the cash flow. اللي هي شيء تاني.
اللي هي مثل الانكم statement but only cash. So we don't account for things that are not cash. But additionally to the income statement, you have activities that are not related to your operations, like purchasing machines, like selling machines, like making big investments in the company. This will not appear on your income statement, but it will appear on your cash flow statement. Okay? Okay, so few financial ratios, we will not go over all of them, but I pointed them out. So gross profit margin, operating profit margin, and net margin, these are the three ratios we saw at the income statement here. So this is the gross profit margin, which is your gross profit divided by your net sales. The other one is your EBITDA margin or operating profit margin, which is also your EBITDA divided by your sales. And the last one is net income. This is after you remove all your operating expenses, all your interest expenses, or your tax expenses, and this is the bottom line. So this is the net profit margin. These are return related. I will skip them. The other important ratios are related to the activity. So Constantin mentioned it a while ago. We're looking at the working capital. So as a reminder, what is working capital?
Anything you need to operate the company.
Such as?
Kind of.
So it's receivables, it's payable. أنت عم بتزعبل بس ما في finance يرد على السؤال. So it's accounts receivable. So what you owe what you're expecting to get from your clients. Accounts payable, what you owe your suppliers, and inventory. And Constantin mentioned it a while ago. We need to manage this. So we can't afford to have long cash cycles. So how do we do it? We look at the days it will take for us to be able to collect the debt that we have from clients. How many days it takes us for us to sell the products that we have on our shelves, and how many days it take the suppliers give us until we have to pay them back. So these ratios, which are related to, so these are a number of days. So this is receivables divided by sales, inventory divided by the cost of sales, and payables divided by the cost of sales. This is so number of days. Typically, the receivables period is 90, 30, depends on the industry. 30 days, 90 days, depends how much time do you need before your clients will pay. The inventory period will also depend on the industry. Some industries, it will take a year for you to turn over your stock, while others, it's very quick. And the payable period is related to suppliers. So how do you manage your working capital cycle? It's by negotiating. So you make sure that vis-a-vis your clients, you have a very clear policy in relation to your credit terms. You are very strict with them. You put a limit on the number of days that you tolerate until they pay you back. You negotiate with your suppliers. You try to get as many days as big payable period as you can to make sure that you give yourself some time. And the inventory period, why is it important? Because you don't want your cash to be tied into stock. Cash that is in stock is cash that is idle, that you're not using to invest, to to purchase other things. So this is the activity ratios, 3 ratios that are very important and will be some of the basics of the financial model that you will build. So now we will reach the financial model. One of the assumptions will be, what do you expect your DSOs, days sales outstanding, to be? What do you expect your DPO, days payable outstanding, to be? And what do you expect your DIO, days inventory outstanding, to be? And you need to know this. You need to be able to forecast this, because this will have a great impact on your cash flow statement and your cash flow forecast.
Sorry. Actually, this is wrong in terms of pricing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you have delays, and this is what John yesterday mentioned. So they had to review their receivables. They saw the log of receivables, and then they had someone to tackle those receivables and make sure collection is happening on time. Inventory, you're not selling as much as you were before, so you have cash tied on your shelves that you're not being able to use, and your suppliers are knocking on your door asking for their money back. Questions?
Pre-revenue period, what are the ratios that are important for the health of the balance sheet and cash flow statement?
So pre-revenue, I'm trying to link it to your case. Inventory, you're starting to build inventory, so it's not as relevant for you because you have the raw materials, but you're not there yet. You're not selling, so you don't have any receivables, and the payables probably would apply for those raw materials that you're buying from your suppliers. So here, this is what you need to negotiate. Give me some time until I start generating revenues, until I can pay you back, or give me some facilities related to that. Liquidity ratios, so this goes back to the fact that you don't want to have cash that is tied up. So you want to know that at any time, if you need cash, you can liquidate certain assets fast, such as collecting receivables to be able to have to get cash on hand, such as delaying the payables that you have. So we look at the current ratio, which is current assets over current liabilities. The numerator will be inventory, will be receivables, would be cash, and the current liabilities would be the payables. And you want this ratio to be relatively high to be able to say that you are you have a liquid balance sheet. This is similar to, so the quick asset ratio is similar to the current asset ratio, but it doesn't have inventory in the numerator. And this is related to how can you cover your interest expense from the operating profit. So operating profit is right before interest expense payments. So what percentage, let's say, of your operating profit does the interest expense represent? Here, just quickly, so this is debt to equity. On the balance sheet, we said on the second side of the balance sheet, you have liabilities and equity. We need to know what percentage they are, debt versus equity. Ideally, we don't want a very highly leveraged company where you have a lot of debt, because you need to service this debt. So we need to know that you have a good percentage of your liabilities and equity side coming from shareholders' equity. We look at it versus assets. We look at it versus shareholders' funds, not the total equity. And we separate between bank debt, between long-term debt, between short-term debt, and other liabilities. The important thing, as Luna asked, so it's not one ratio that's important. You need to look at all those ratios. Once you have your financials there, it's called financial statement analysis. So you analyze the 3 financial statements, the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow. You look at the different ratios that you have, because every ratio will tell you a different story for you to take action upon.
Just one point. A lot of you will say, why bother? You know, why bother with cash flow? She answered, you cannot bother. You have to bother about cash flow. Why bother about ratio? The key with ratios, I take the example of a real life situation. أهلا وسهلا فيكي. نورت هلا. Especially when we talk cash flow and financial ratios. You will get to know her. She's everything but cash flow and financial ratios, but she's very much needed by all of you. So we'll introduce her in a few minutes. Mark كمان هون. أهلين Mark. So this is, I know you have two Marks. You have Mark, I was talking Mark home, but I know you're, Mark, you're going to be next on this. What's important, I was sitting with the CFO, but you're still important. We're sitting with the CFO and we're sitting with the chairman of the Debani Sayari group. We had a list of about 30 ratios. And the question is, which are the ratios which are the most important from a board perspective? So we went through the process and moved from 30 ratios to about 10 ratios. And we felt that these 10 ratios will be the most important one. And this is what we're going to report on an ongoing basis to all the board members. This exercise is important. And she mentioned a few of those. The working capital is critical. Your revenue or your revenue growth is important. Your gross profit is important. Your operating profit is important. So these are some of the ratios. How much interest expenses you have versus operating profit. It's important to see whether you are spending all your money to pay back interest or not. But we took it a step further. So what we have is those key 10 ratios are included where? Where do you think we have them? Where do we have them? One of the tools that we shared with you. Balance scorecard. Balance scorecard, bravo Alek. So in the balance scorecard, the KPIs, most of these key performance indicators are some of these ratios. So they are. So we have, and we report it. And we have a budget for it, and we want to track this according to the budget. Now, we take it a step further. What is the step further? Mark Horn is the founder of Compost Baladi. With one of the case studies he will be presenting here. So what we will say, if I was on the board of Mark, I will say, Mark, you're the shareholder, major shareholder, but we want to hold you accountable. So as a CEO, out of those 10 KPIs, there are 4 that are critical for us. We're going to have your annual bonus based upon how well you're going to do on those 4 KPIs. The revenue growth is going to represent maybe 20%. The operating profit will represent 30%, and the working capital might represent others. And we will pay your bonus based on how well you do around these ratios versus the target that you have committed. So what are you doing? You're measuring those ratios. You're including those ratios in terms of the balance scorecard, and you're tracking those. And then ultimately, if you don't have a carrot for Mark, he doesn't care. We need to have a carrot. Now, if he doesn't deliver, he gets 0 bonus. And if he doesn't deliver in 2 years down the road, he gets out of the company, although he might be the major shareholder of the organization. As a board, if he doesn't deliver, we say, look, you're not meeting you're still the major shareholders, but we believe we need somebody else as a CEO. I'm not using Mark as an example. Smaller Mark is doing extremely well on it. But this is why these ratios are important. They're not here now. If you were during the good old times, bank will never issue without going through the ratios. So how much debt can you raise? What are the conditions that they will give you in terms of your credit quality? Depends on what? On the ratio. Each one of you have those ratios. The bank will not extend to you as an individual without going through the ratios. The bank will not extend to you if you were a company without going through they run these ratios, and out of the ratios they will tell you, in your case, Mitri, we're willing to lend you $100,000. We look at your ratios. It's going to take 3 years to reimburse. This is the interest rate because this is the risk category. Each one of you would have a risk category. Each one of your companies have a risk category. And based on the risk category, the bank will decide how much and on which condition. Each of the countries in the world have a risk category. Unfortunately for Lebanon, it's D. D means default. So this is the worst risk category. So this is why nobody has extended any loan to our country behind it. But I come, for instance, I live in Switzerland. Switzerland is one of the few countries where we have a AAA. Why is the French now fighting so much? Because they're afraid if they move from one risk category to another risk category, which is lower, i.e. higher risk, what do you think happens to the country? They do what? Yeah, they lose investors. The cost of the country to borrow money is higher. So this is why the Ministry of Finance is doing his best, because now they're going to degrade France. for different reasons, not to degrade it. Because once that degraded by a notch from double A plus to double A or to double A minus, the cost of borrowing for the French government goes up. And if it goes up 0.5%, it's a huge amount because they have loans worth hundreds of billions of dollars in the country. So this is driven by what? At the individual, at the company, at the country, is driven by financial ratios. Now these ratios, of course, depend on you having an operation and starting, and this is important, and this is where we look at history. So this is why cash flow is important, or the financial statement. What do we do with a financial statement? We do the ratios. What do we do with the ratios? We decide whether Mark or whether somebody else is the right leader for this organization. And if he's the right leader, his bonus plan would be linked directly to him delivering on some of these ratios. Is this clear? Yes. So as you grow and as you're going to get investors, these investors, discussion واحدة من فضلكم. في عندنا one discussion point. عم تحكوا كتير هيك. ما عم بيسمعونا. تعي حدي محلي.
كانوا عايزين كل واحد لحاله.
ايه نحطوا الواحد على جنب هيك بنعملكم هو بالاخر الصف وانت بتضلك هون. Okay, so is this clear? It's important, and I know it's a bit tough on it. Mark, do you want to talk now? Do we have Mark now, or do you have Mark later? We have Doha. So we do the financial modeling afterwards? Yes. Okay, and then we have the break. Okay, very good. So Doha is starting. You want to introduce Doha, or should I introduce Doha? Okay, look, all what we're talking here, yes.
How do you apply these ratios to a tech startup where the product is software?
Okay. Okay, the tech startup that, let's say, have absolutely no revenue, could be tech or non-tech, you don't have ratios. So you don't. So there is no ratios because there is no number, because you haven't started maybe generating, or if you started generating, you start at the early phases. You don't. What you do is you apply initiative. I want to know what are the key strategic initiatives. So I want to hold you. You want $200,000 for me. Tell me the 3 or 4 things that you will do with the $300,000, and then I will hold you accountable for this, because we know that you're going to build and for some, you know, I mentioned Wakilni, but I could mention others. I mean, Raja mentioned that you have a number of companies where you're not making money. So your ratios actually, when your profit is negative, everything is, you know, what are you going to divide? You know, it's all negative, so these ratios do not make sense. A few will still make sense, because it's not so much about the profitability that you generate, but how much of your revenue are you growing and how good is the quality of those revenues. I don't want to spend too much time. It's about the quality of the revenues, which is how many of those revenues are recurrent revenues, are coming from customers who have already bought from you. So this, for me, if you're a tech startup, I'm interested in this. I want to know what is the percentage of your business that is coming from customers that have either through a licensing or through some sort of a monthly subscription. The more is this percentage, the more recurrent is your business, the higher is the value. This is high quality revenue that we go. Other we look at is how much does it cost you to attract a customer. So what is the customer acquisition cost? Will be a ratio I'll be looking for. How long do you retain your customer? So this is how much, what is the life cycle that you could, in revenue that you could generate. And I will look at the ratio of your life cycle to the cost of acquisition. So these are the ratios that are not necessarily the ratios that she has described, but these are ratios that are important for a tech startup. So I would look at your ability to get leads, your ability to convert these leads into actual orders, your ability to retain customer over a period of time. This will be, for me, very important measures that will be a bit different. And for those, you could still be losing money for the next 10 years, but they will be important for me. So they will be more important than net profitability or others. So depending on the company, we will define some sort of ratios which would change. Okay, I'm going to present now. All what we're talking today and tomorrow and yesterday has to do with the rationale. It's who you are, framework, process. We have a strategy. We have at the end, at the center of it is the CEO, is the founder. And this founder is a human being. This founder has fears. This founder has a struggle with the fears. And fears is basically one of the most important enabler. That is a lot. Why? Because it freezes you. So what you need is you need someone to be able to listen to you. You need to have someone who could relate to you and someone could help you maybe address those fears, overcome those fears. So it's not at all about financials. It's not at all about strategy. It's not about company valuation. It's about who you are as an individual, what matters for you in terms of why are you here in this world, and how can we help you achieve this in a way that makes you as fearless as possible, because these fears could be extremely damaging for a number of... So what I want to introduce a lady who is the sister of Lama. I shouldn't say this on it, but we got to know each other through Lama, because once in my life I face, and I'm sure of you a number of face it, you need to have someone to be able to discuss those with you, someone to listen, and someone who be able to act as a personal coach or personal mentor to help you in the process. So I'm asking Doha to come to present herself, tell you a little bit what she do, and then what we will do, for those of you who are interested, you could then extend, and we'll be more than happy to put you in contact. We're going to do the same thing also with Maurice. With Mark, we're not going to use him as a coach. We're going to hold him accountable for the business that he has. Thank you.
How did you guess? Really? Okay, so hi. My name is Makarem. I'm an MBA holder from the Lebanese American University. I have many years of experience. I will not mention how many, but a lot, in hotel management, public and political administration, and social and cultural organizations. I'm here today, as Constantin said, to talk a little bit about the most important capital in your organizations, which is the human. So I will not do a presentation. I will just ask, what are the most important challenges you're facing when it comes to the human capital? Retention.
Finding the right type.
Recruiting, or okay. Potential. What do you mean by potential? What exactly is the challenge with potential?
Skills, talents.
Growth? Who said growth? Yeah. This is really the core of it. You mentioned it. Is how to use or how to uncover the potential of your employees, of your staff, no matter on which level we're talking, in order to grow together, both the person and the company. So mna'la sawa. And this usually is not done internally. Many companies, they have internal coaches, yes, and it is important, but sometimes you need a fresh view. You need someone from the outside to walk with you, to see things from a different perspective, in order for the company to grow together, as we said. And here comes the role of a coach. In coaching, usually you have so many different approaches. My preferred approach is the holistic. So we work on the person, with the person, for this person to grow, to change perspective, to change the limit, or to discover the limiting beliefs that they have. So we work on the person, and once the person is, I would say, heal, even if we're not talking psychology, but I would say once the person is okay with himself or with herself, this is when he can use or she can use the full potential she has for the company to benefit from this potential and for the growth to happen. So this is basically it. ما جاي اتفلسف, بس to tell you that it's really, really important to have a coach in your companies. Shall I mention something else, Constantin? Did I miss anything?
No, you did. I mean,
because I just wanted to be brief. ما أوجع لهم راسهم. Already they're roasted بفتكر. امبارح واليوم.
Yeah. Look, There is a process that she doesn't want to go into the details of the process. What we're going to do is we want you to get to know, and it's important for those of you who have an interest, we'll put you in contact with Doha. I give you an example. Today when I was with Lama, with one of the companies, so we went through the leadership assessments. We agreed on those, what are the gaps for these key leaders. We also agreed on what is the development plan for each of these leaders. At this point in time, it's not the managers who could only react. At this point in time, the CEO decided to appoint a coach to be able to look and to follow up with a selected number of leaders. Why? Because the coach will be an external independent party to help the individual in being able to live up to the development plan that we have agreed. So I'm a firm believer. In my life, I used coaches in my professional life and also in your personal life. So I thought it would be important to it. Yes, please, go ahead.
We come across a lot of coaching programs for the founders themselves. Are there any for the entire team? Because I really believe in the power of coaches.
So you're asking whether there's a coaching program for a whole team?
For team members, because most of the programs we come across are designed for the founders or the owners to get coached, but not the so how about
No, I mean, I mentioned before that at every level you need to have coaching. So at every level you need to have a coaching. There's always a need. There's always a need. And for teams, there are special coaching programs like training courses to address the coaching issues that need to be addressed. Donc, there is special programs, yes, definitely. There are special programs. Any other question?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mark. Okay, I'm introducing Mark. Makarem is the founder of Campus Baladi. Mark and I have been working for the past few years. He's going to introduce his company. He's going to introduce the challenge that he has been facing in terms of financial sustainability. And he will also try to describe what were the tips that he put in place in order to be able to go through this bumps. Because bumps, you're going to always to have bumps. So we had, it's great to hear it from him in terms of the process that we used and to describe a bit what he does. Mark, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Constantin, for having me. And always look forward to share my experience, as many shared their experience with us through the support that Constantin has given us over these past years. So my name is Makarem. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Campus Baladi and Cubex. We do compost production and we manufacture machines for composting. So we produce our own compost, we manufacture machines for others to produce compost, and we provide advisory along the way. At least that's how we've operated until last year, and I'll tell you more about that. We started really from a need. I used to live in the US. I learned a lot about sustainability. I got very passionate about it. I did my degree in that and came back wanting to fix the country. And I still believe in that, and I still believe we're doing a decent role in contributing with what we can. But then, of course, from the dream and the gap that we saw in the market that nobody was working on organic waste to getting people to pay for the service or pay for sustainability or make a sustainable business out of the service, you'll see how this was a very challenging journey so far, but why we still believe in it. So I think being an entrepreneur is very much about temperament. You're going to have a lot of lows. And many places you're going to feel alone in those lows, especially if you have a big team that is counting on you. You really have a weight burden beyond your own livelihood of you're accountable or responsible in some shape for those people you've brought on board and who believed in you and the mission you are advocating for. So being able to not only make smart, quick decisions, but really reflect on putting clear KPIs and not letting opportunities or opportunistic approaches take you left and right, really keeping straight to your goal, I think is a critical thing you'll suffer a lot from, especially in Lebanon. Because we're strapped on money. You need a garden with some compost, I'll do the garden with compost. You need a toilet that composts, I'll do the toilet that composts. You're so hungry to survive that you might lose touch of where you're trying to get to and end up actually wasting a lot of time along the way. And about the financials, briefly, I know I'm going a bit on the side here, but about the financials, managing your ratios, even beyond ratios, making sure you're managing your expenses in an intelligent way, even human resources. At the beginning, we weren't paying human resources. We were paying with the dream of the company that we're creating. So just being wise about expenditures and from the beginning, understanding as the CEO, your ratios is critical, because that's going to save you a lot of wasted time along the way. And it's simple to put these ratios on, but once you're running the company, being able to collect your data in a proper way, in a segregated way by business line, this will pose a challenge. And if you count on your accountant, you're not going to get the data you want. They don't know what you're working on a day-to-day. So manage your data, and then you can get help on evaluating and analyzing it. But if you don't collect your data properly throughout your journey, you're going to be like, okay, well, next year we'll have data. So, okay, next year we'll have data, and it never happens. So now finally we have data, quality data, because we have put in better processes. Going into compost beledi. So we started initially doing composting bins for households. People wanted to compost. We started building wooden bins. Then we started seeing a demand from municipalities. We started working with municipalities. We developed our own technology called the container composter. We got a patent on it. We've installed several units across the country. Right now we're working with 10 municipalities, with 10 more this year to be installed. And some of them we operate ourselves. Others, they're operated by the municipality with a technical assistance from us. How does it work? Municipalities don't actually have the money to pay us. We work with development agencies, so agent funds that want to enable a certain beneficiary that is a municipality or a community or a farmer, and we act as the intermediary, giving the knowledge transfer, the training, ensuring the sustainability of the project and that it's well designed. I mentioned the three business lines: manufacturing the machines, selling the compost, so producing and selling the compost, and the consultancy services. Well, this, across our period, the time we were working, this was a survivalist mindset. We needed these three business lines to survive, which, coming back to it, maybe was not necessarily true, but at least we were very confident that we needed that. A very tricky moment for us. I'm going to jump through the presentation if you don't mind. So a very tricky moment for us was in 2022. So we have been ramping up our revenues year after year, still very minor profitability in previous years, but working on ramping up those revenues. In 2022, we put a plan to raise capital. Mostly we've been surviving here off of the basic small revenue and grants. We raised over $500,000 in grants, selling the dream essentially of our mission and what we want to achieve. But at this point, we faced a challenge. About 10% of our revenue was coming from the sale of compost. About 40% was coming from the sale of machines, and 50% was coming from consulting. The main challenges for us were that those two revenues, the consulting and the machinery trade, were not reoccurring in nature. Sure, you can retain a consulting client from a sense, but we were waiting on programs to decide to fund a certain project, and then that will entail us having a project, whether consultancy or the machinery installation. And we decided we needed to focus much more on the sale of compost. This is what we bring the most value on the table with. This is where the true impact of getting compost sold and used by the farmer. And this is where you're going to have a big reoccurrence and a potential to have massive growth, and really where our core innovation comes in, beyond being consultants and technology providers. And the fact was that we paid the price the year after. Our plan was to, in 2023, generate about $1.1 million in revenue. We landed at around 400,000 at the end of 2023. Now, the reason for that is we had a lot of delays in setting up our infrastructure, composting facilities to be able to meet those targets. But effectively, a lot of these revenues were spontaneous and were not reoccurring. So when Constantin was talking about the tech company and how reoccurring is your revenue, I think that's very essential in evaluating how interesting this financial opportunity is. And in Q3 of 2023, that was somewhat of an existential crisis for the company. We had just raised $400,000, promised our investors about 1.1 million in revenue and landed at 400. Constantin saw this and he went crazy. Very frustrated with the performance. And of course, there's a lot of layers of why we ended up here. But at the end of the day, you made a forecast to your investors and you didn't deliver, and you weren't even close to deliver, not even half. So one big lesson here, manage the expectations of your investors. Be honest with yourself of what you can generate. It's not how much you can produce, it's how much you can sell. And most importantly, I think we get so stuck in the very tech growth times 10 company, and that's great, and we all want it. But let's acknowledge rating D, cost of debt is like 12% if you're lucky. It's not the environment is not very enabling. So acknowledge your limitations. Know that there's a ramp-up period. Don't focus too much on your bottom line. Focus on how much growth are you improving, how much client, customer base, and then you can focus on the bottom line, especially when our investors are much more interested in how you're going to be a times 10, times 100 company than $20,000 and how we're going to distribute it among them. So we focused a lot more on sales, and so yeah, going back to that moment, that existential moment where we didn't believe we had more than 6 months to go. Company's going to shut down, 5 years gone to waste, and you get that freeze moment. You really get that freeze moment, and that's where these mentors can come like a knight in shining armor. Because they do have a third eye perspective. They're not emotionally attached to the situation. Neither previous projects that you have to shut down because they're not working out, nor individuals in the company. They're really emotionally disattached. And make sure the mentor you are bringing on board does have the competence to be able to have been in your shoes. I mean, that's at least for being a mentor of a CEO. Make sure you get an ex-CEO to do that, or somebody really having played a similar executive role, because they're the only ones who can really even try to get in your shoes. Once we did that, we did a full 360 analysis of the company. What are our different business lines? What's making money? What's not? Which one has a serious upside? We did like a metric of what's a question mark? What's a cash cow? What is an opportunity in the future? What is an opportunity today? And what are some of the challenges in our cost structures and so on? So,
sorry, Mark?
Yes.
What is the minus 100% in 2021?
So, Lama, you shared this, 2021.
Second row.
This is compared to 2020.
On the previous value, but I wouldn't look at this.
Point taken.
I wouldn't look at this. This is not accurate.
Point taken.
So, if I want to talk about what we did to really shift things, our first step was to determine what are the business lines we want to work on. So first we sat with our team, who has been with us, many of them been with us for over 4 years. And by then, they're underpaid. It's been a while. We're promising we're going to be a multi-billion company, but we're not there yet. They're compromising an opportunity to go somewhere else and make more money with our clients even. And we know that. But at the same time, we've had a strong relationship with them. So we sat with them and we understood better what's going wrong. And I think the biggest answer that came out is, Mark, we're not focused. Everything we do in a rush. We're chasing the next dollar. And the team is just loaded with very low-paying projects. And we're not able to give 100% to anything because we have too many things on our plate. We just have to finish the next thing. And each one of them effectively was in 3 of the business lines. They do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It was too much. So we realized we need to cut down business lines. And this is where we decided to stop doing machinery trade. So we stopped manufacturing composting machinery. We stopped trading composting machinery. All of that, we stopped it. And the reason we did that, from one side, because of the volatility of the demand from one side, and from another side, because it had the biggest cost on us in terms of human resource to manufacture, the storage space in terms of manufacturing space. And effectively, we took 2 employees that were in that department, and we gave them the opportunity of that business. So because this business essentially still has a revenue potential, but it's not suitable for the company, we built a royalty program where everything we have a patent on, any client that comes to us requiring this project or any consultancy we do that would require this technology, we'd contract them to do it, or they would be contracted to do it, and we get paid a royalty fee on our technology. So we converted this cost burden from one side to a royalties opportunity and created an entrepreneurship opportunity for an ex-employee. Second thing is we split the two business lines of compost production and consulting. They're two different business lines. One, compost production, gets raw materials, produce them, ferment them over 3 months, then after 3 months store them, then sell them to the farmers. It had nothing to do with billing man hours. So we split the two companies, and those two subsidiaries, we actually gave stake for the executive equity, for the executive team members in form of preferential shares. Sorry. Oh, okay. Preferential shares to executive team members, which means they get a profit share of the bottom line, and really gave them a more accountability, actually. With that, we gave them more accountability and put in the right structure for them to be incentivized to get paid from the upside on the short term. Not just you're going to get stocks, and if you leave, we don't know how you sell these stocks. We really focused on making sure they can see that it's within their hands, their ability to make this revenue. So the advisor that we brought on board, not only did he, we got a variance here. It's not switching with me. Sure. I just want to go to the tasks at the end.
We need to wrap up.
Sure. Yeah. No, hey. Perfect. Okay. So briefly, what did we do? We were able to, from one side, solicit our investors. We were very transparent with our investors. We told them we had to revise the budget. This quarter was the first quarter we actually made our forecast, which definitely turns things into a positive. A lot of the employees we shifted into an hourly or a part-time basis, the ones that are not core-related to sales. We shifted a lot of the focus onto the sales team. As executives, we took salary cuts. So the two main executives, my partner and I, we took about a 60% salary cut to go through this transition phase. We established a holding company so we can make way for one of the key opportunities we have today in Saudi Arabia. We're establishing a company there, and the company we established last year in Jordan. And what we've tried to do now is really focus on where are we going to get the short-term revenue. Our impact and our vision for Lebanon is still there. Our production for Lebanon is still there. But we need to make sure to sustain the company that we build a certain short-term revenue, and that's where the KSA opportunity comes in. We talked about outsourcing manufacturing, segregation of business lines. I think last one would be on the mentorship. We received support on building the proper governance. I think that's very important. So putting the right KPIs for your team and accountability for each one, putting the right equity, decision-making process, and bringing on, further into the focus, bringing on some C-level executives, so like a CFO and a CMO, on a part-time basis with an equity incentive for them to take on some of the roles that myself and my partner were doing, so we can focus more on strategic decisions, nailing down the governance, and yes, taking the company to the next step. Thank you.
Why aren't you making use of the methane gas?
So this is a bit of a side topic, but it boils down to economics. There is no economic viability in methane gas. It makes sense in Europe because it's subsidized, for example. In Lebanon, it's not. So
You make electricity out of it and you sell it to the grid.
the economics don't make sense. It's a loss. It's not profitable.
One other question, what's your feedstock?
We use mostly food waste, but we also do manure. Food waste and manure. Yes, the product? Yes, we do a 3 months fermentation process for our product, and we do a quality control at the end, lab testing to ensure that it's... We have our own brand, it's called Eco Matter, and we do sell a lot of olive producers actually. We have a partnership in Kura now with Saife. We're pushing a lot more on the marketing, absolutely. This year you would have seen much more marketing from us. You're buying compost, you mean? Let's sit then, definitely. Anyone else would like to buy compost? There we go, there we go. طلعنا حق المشوار يا. No, absolutely. We used to import $5.2 million a year of compost before the crisis. So, absolutely. الحصد. Let's talk after the session. Thank you very much.
One question. Do you have complaints about sting?
No, you mean at our facility? No. No, absolutely not. We guarantee up until 50 meters from our space that you would not smell any odors. And this is part of the technology we developed for the odor control. هو مش دافع شيء by the way.
Why did you wait that long before you took any decision or took any action? يعني it was obvious throughout the whole year من وقت ما حطيت البادجت لوصلت للآخر.
Yes.
إنه it's not going the proper way.
So inherently,
Did you take any action?
it's a very fair question. So inherently, the budget that we had was structured where our revenues were coming in later quarters, Q3 and Q4, because we had a period of commissioning the facilities. And that period kept getting delayed. Now, by Q3, where we sounded the alarm, we weren't out of cash. We still had about $300,000 of cash out of the 400 we had. But we just saw that 6 months down the road, with business as usual, we're not going to be in the right place. So we caught it early, and we're in a good place today. But we had to hit the wall before we actually know that we're hitting the wall, essentially. Yeah.
How much money do you make from tipping fees?
Actually, we currently make zero out of tipping fees because in Lebanon, it's very hard to incentivize the municipality to pay the tipping fee. So what we do is either we charge a collection fee to the commercial establishment, Carrefour, Spinneys, etc., or they do a free drop-off at our facility. So we don't actually do tipping fees on the municipality.
You don't pay you anything?
No. They give me a free land, and they give me the right to collect. That's it.
What's your next 3 years ambition?
So KSA is a big part of it. We're now closing a deal with the Saudi Investment Fund for Waste Management for about $500,000 for a pilot facility. And the vision there is they want to install 200 of these facilities in the next 3 years as an intermediary solution. So having the investment fund on our side is a big opportunity because once we succeed with the produce market in Riyadh, we can really replicate quite aggressively. So that's from one side. When we talk about Lebanon, particularly and the compost production here, this year we should be able to be profitable for the first year in compost production. So we're very focused on our sales target and our customer base target. It was the first year where we managed to do some export also to Iraq, and hopefully more of that. Our vision is to have a profitable, first profitable year. This year, in 3 years, the facility should mature at around 420,000 in net.
Your efforts, you need to move human resources, you need to start from materials there.
In Saudi. Yes, absolutely. So Saudi, we've started this quite a while ago. We've done a roadshow first where we assessed the market. We've positioned ourselves. We set up a business development partner there with a stake in the company. We found a Saudi partner to have a Saudization effect. We did a lot of work to get business ready to go into Saudi. And most importantly, we're finding the cash not from our cash flow, from getting Saudi investors on board. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a few key points, what you listened. So if you want to summarize, first, what did he do? Realizing that he was going to hit the wall, well, how did he do it? It's cash flow forecasting. We sat down, looked at the cash flow forecast, and he realized in 6 months down the road he's going to run out of cash, so it should be. So cash flow forecasting is essential. Without this, he would have continued to spend how he spent. So this is number one. Number two is to realize, once you know this, is to have the courage to take tough decisions. Tough decisions means salary cuts for him and his co-founders. Tough decision means some of the employees to change their job status from full-time to maybe part-time behind it. So this is, number three, is to look at focus. So what were the things that made money? What were the things that did not make money? So look at your portfolio of businesses and also take the courage to stop. It's difficult to take the courage to stop. He had the courage to be able to stop and then to decide. If he didn't do it, it would have been continuously draining money and draining expenses that you have and not creating financial value. The most important one, and this is what I like about Mark and Eli, who is also working with Mark, is that they are willing to listen. So they're willing to listen. They had different mentors that worked with them. They're listening and they're acting on it. And this for us as potential investors, it's true that I couldn't invest in his because I was conflicting. I was one of his advisors as part of a program and we're providing him grants, so we could not do it. But I convinced a few of my friends and family members to do invest in this company. It's important for us that the criteria is not only he has technology, which he does, not only it's scalable, he showed you KSA, not only is he creating impact because he's creating and measuring this impact, but most importantly is he has the integrity level and the coachability level, and this is what a lot of investors will be looking. Is he coachable? Does he live in terms of the values that we want in terms of new business leaders in this world? And he does. So this is one of the things that push us. So thank you. Thank you. And this is a small book with une dédicace de ma part. Donc ça c'est, so this is just published. You're one of the first one to receive it. Thank you. Thank you. Faddal. Yes.
When he raised money.
Yes. Where بيحط المصاري؟ No, you do. For instance, you have accounts in different banks in Lebanon, in 4 banks. You do now. You could get fresh money into. In the past, when he raised the money, it was a year ago. Already, it was available. So we had it. So we had the ability to be able to raise funds, and to now these funds have been used a lot in terms of the many initiatives. But he has the ability. Mark, was it an offshore account or onshore account? The money that you have, your cash flow, where is it physically sitting? Lebanese banks? It's.
But no. So we have part in our Jordanian account.
Okay.
And we have a part in the Lebanese account and part in the company safe.
Okay, so part is in cash. Part of it is in Jordan, so probably with Arab Bank, and the other part was with Lebanese Bank. So we do. I mean, when we do the investments, we have fresh accounts. Now it could also disappear, so we don't keep large amounts of money on it, but we do. Yes. We do. It is a risk that we do. So what we do is we take this money, keep it. Don't keep it for covering whatever expenses you need for a period of 1 month, 2 months. But don't. Whatever extra goes, in his case, it's in Jordan or it's in the safe. So Lama, for instance, has a safe at home. Whenever extra cash we have, تفضل Lama. وما بسأل. This is. Yeah, so this is where we spend it. The picture she showed us is on the ski slopes in Switzerland. Anyway, so look, we're going to take a break. We're going to make it 10 minutes maximum because we have a lot to cover with Lama on it. It's
coffee outside.
So and there is coffee outside and there are cookies outside also. عملناها أضبط من امبارح شوي. بس ما اتقنوا على الكوكيز لأنه في العشاء.
So now that the financial statements are clear, we move to the financial model. أول step, if you have started before, you need to start with the 2023, let's say. هلا نحط ال 2023 financial statements that you have, so you can know what did you do before, so you can be able to forecast the future. هلا to build the financial model, there's a set of assumptions that we that we usually need to agree on in order to build the model. We start with the revenues. So the top line of the income statement, where we need to think what is the revenue model that we have. Some of you are selling products, some of you are generating revenues through subscription, through commission, through rent. So first of all, you need to decide what is the revenue model that you have, and you might have different streams. So membership and a flat fee, commission and sales. You have to have this clear before we jump into the Excel and before we jump into the assumptions that we have. Here I'd like to show. Okay, so here are different examples of what a revenue model can look like. So if you're taking on projects, here you would have the number of projects that you have, and you might have different types of projects with different pricing for each. So let's say you have 3 categories: small, medium, and large projects. Each of those will be having a different pricing on it, and then what is the number of projects that you forecast in order for us to get the revenue. So why are we doing this? We need to have the first line of your income statement, which is the revenue line. The revenue line has the revenue streams under it. They have the revenue model under it, and we need to be able to have this revenue line. What is coming into it? What is feeding into it? So this is one example where the business model is project-based. Sorry. This one is when you're selling products. So you have different products, product X, Y, and Z. Again, you expect to be selling 10 items of product X, 100 of product Y, and these are the pricings of those products. Again, you might have two models, this one and the one above, and then you combine them into your revenues. Here we're looking at if you're taking commission, if you have clients, and then you have the spend per client. So it's a platform, it's a website. Typically, you would have 50 clients per month buying from you, and each of them, on average, would be spending $5. This would be the revenue.
3 types of subscriptions are considered 3 products.
Depending on the pricing.
Yes.
So if it's yearly, this is the amount for yearly, this is the amount for monthly, this is for corporate, this is for retail, this is for... So whatever is, if you can differentiate, then it's a different product. And the more granular it is, the more you have control over it. And this is how you can defend it. So when you tell me you're going to make 14,000 in revenues in July, okay, tell me where are these revenues coming from, and talk to me in terms of project, in terms of product, number of clients, spend, so that you can validate those numbers that you're projecting. Here is an example for membership. So if your revenue model relies on membership, then also you forecast the number of clients, the membership per client, and you can have your revenues. Here we're looking at monthly projections. Typically, for the first year of the financial model, we recommend that we work on a monthly basis, because you have the data, you know how the things will evolve, and you will need afterwards to have a financial cash flow forecast month by month to see how your cash flow balance will evolve. So this is just to give an example of how you can, let me show you. So this is how the financial model will look like. Okay. So the financial model will have the 3 financial statements that we covered. We start with the balance sheet, then the income statement, then the cash flow statement will be automatically generated. So the balance sheet, are you able to see in the back? Okay, so the balance sheet has the items that we mentioned: cash and bank accounts, receivables, inventory, machinery, equipment, land, furniture, vehicles, And then any intangible assets, if you're developing a platform, if your biggest asset is a software, is the application, is the platform, then you put it here under intangible assets. Then you have the liabilities and equity side. So here you have your accounts payable, you have your debt, and this is the equity, which is the paid-in capital. Just a reminder of what we covered earlier. The capital stock, the retained earnings, which is the profit that has accumulated from previous years, and the profit of the year. Then we move to the income, and it has to be reconciled. So total assets should always equal to liabilities plus equity. Then this is the income statement. So you have your revenue line, and this is what we would just discuss now. So for me to be able to find what would be my sales number for 2024, I need to have the backup calculation for it in terms of products, in terms of number of clients, number of sales, the pricing strategy behind it, how am I pricing what I'm selling, and so on. So this is the gross profit that we said, this is the top line. Then you have your operating expenses, then you have your EBITDA, depreciation, interest expense, tax, and this is the net income. And then the cash flow will be automatically generated based on the assumptions that we covered earlier. So for us to be able to build this financial model or to fill the cells in it, and we're doing this exercise with many of you, we have to have those assumptions clear in order to fill the numbers here and to have, at the end, a financial forecast and the cash flow forecast where we say, okay, so we expect to have, this is our cash position at the end of the year. These are dummy numbers. Okay, so what kind of assumptions we spoke about? So you remember the transformation framework that Constantin went over yesterday will be the source of what are your growth opportunities, what will be the products that you will be selling, what are your transformation pillars, what is the pricing strategy, what kind of sales channels will you have, where are you present, which countries, which regions. So these all will influence the assumptions behind your revenue line. So this is the first thing, is to project the revenue streams, and we covered this. Next is to project the costs. So the first cost item that we need to project is the one that is directly related to your sales. This is what we call a cost of goods sold. So what are the costs that you are incurring because you are selling, when you are selling this product? It can be the raw material that you purchase, it can be the salary of the person manufacturing the good, it can be the cost that you incur on packaging, delivering, etc. So the first item in cost is cost of goods sold, which is the second line in your income statement. And then you have the other costs. And you need to project those based on your understanding of the business. So for example, if you know that you will be having several points of sale, each of those points of sale will have its own rent expense, and you need to forecast this accordingly. If you need to spend on marketing, so you need to know what is your marketing budget for you to make those sales figures that we put. So if you're planning to scale from 10K to 30K to 100K, you need to be spending on marketing. And then you need to quantify what is the marketing budget you have. Utility bills, on electricity, on water, on fuel. What are your costs on each of those items? And these are forecasted monthly for the first year. And then we agree on a growth rate for later on. For the revenues, I forgot to mention, so we did this month by month for the first year. Then for the rest of the years, so let's say 2025 onwards, we need to agree on a growth rate. This growth rate, how do I come up with it? First of all, from my understanding of the market, from my discussion with existing customers to understand what is their demand, how replicable it is, this model to, how sellable it is, this product or service to other clients, from my understanding of the market size. So this is the total addressable market. My aim is to get that part of the market and what this part of the market represents in terms of revenues. And accordingly, what is the growth rate in my revenues today for me to reach that market share in the future. So different assumptions, different discussions will be, you will have focus groups, you will have market study to be able to quantify those numbers and put those growth rates to know what are your revenues, not only for this first year, but also for the 5 years ahead. And we need to have a 5-year financial model The valuation later on we will cover will depend on it. When you're selling it to your investors, you need to tell them that this is the scalability that I'm offering you. So this is a business that is scalable. I will be able to move from a sales number of X to sales 10X in 5 years. And this is showing the attractiveness of the business model that I have. On costs, again, it's also an assumption of growth. So some of the costs will increase with inflation. So the cost today is X, and next year it will only increase by the 3% inflation rate. Sometimes I'm starting with salaries that are as low as, just symbolic salaries, but I know that once I start generating revenues and I'm getting closer to profitability, I will afford to increase the salaries. So instead of increasing salaries by inflation or by a certain percentage, I would jump from $1,000 a month to $5,000 a month as a CEO once I can afford it. So it does depend on a case by case. Also it depends, take salaries for example. If you're moving from, when you're starting up, you have a very small team. And the salaries of those few members in the team are at a certain rate, and then the team will evolve. So you will start hiring more people, you will start increasing the salaries of those, and you model this. So I'll show you here. So here you have the different roles that you have. So be it the general manager, something related to operations, customer support, marketing, accounting, legal, graphic design, sales, business development. So each of those roles you will have to forecast, and you probably don't need a quality control in the first year, in the first month or in the first year, but you know that you will have to hire one, and this will drive your cost structure going forward. So it's a very granular exercise with a lot of assumptions behind it in order to reach the financial statement where, okay, you have your financial or your income statement ready and you can show it.
As startup founders, وقت ما نبلش نعمل expenses يا بنكون كتير بخلا يا بنكون كتير عم نروح بخير. To which level فينا نحط
Very conservative.
قد ما فيك بخلا bootstrapping للموت.
Very conservative. You don't give yourself a salary for the. You start very low profile because you can't afford. And once you prove traction, once you prove that you are making those sales numbers that you're putting, then you can finance those operating expenses اللي هن أكتر للmarketing. Now it's also a cycle. You won't be able to do the sales number if you don't spend on marketing. So these are the essentials that you have, but you have, as Constantin said, you have to really be squeezing.
Sales كمان يا بنكون كتير optimistic يا بنكون كتير pessimistic.
Conservative, based on your understanding of the market, based on your market potential, based on what other competitors are doing. Yani you're starting a business in that industry, you see what are others doing, how much revenues they're generating. So you have a sense of, do my revenues make sense? Do my projections make sense? Are they too aggressive? Are they too conservative? So it's always, and it depends on a case by case. Depends on your level of growth. So today, as a startup, will be different than 2-3 years down the line. And it's a constant exercise to review the model. So it's not a model that you prepare once and khalas, you stick with it. Every time you're making fine-tunings to it, you're adding, you're changing assumptions, you're adding a role here, you're changing the salary, you're adding a point of sale, an investment, an equipment that you need to buy. So it's constantly changing.
Thank you.
So here we're looking at So here we're looking at the different roles that you would need in terms of hiring, and then you have the salary structure for each, which is here. So you know that you will start with paying yourself as a general manager only $1,500 in the first year, and then you jump to 2020 to 3,000 in 2026, or you increase gradually with inflation for the other positions. So all those assumptions you need to make. Going to cost again, remember when we discussed the second line of the income statement being the cost of goods sold. This here you will understand from what does it take for you to sell this product. It could be a certain margin. So usually entrepreneurs we work with know ahead of time that the cost of goods sold is 20%, 40% of the sales figure. So it's a percentage that you apply, and as you move in time, as you increase efficiency, you can control more your cost of goods sold and improve your margins on it. Here I'm showing the costs. So here you see the monthly cost for advertising and marketing, for insurance, for utilities, if you're hosting emails, for promotions that you're giving. And we always advise to have a buffer. So whenever you're being too aggressive in your projections, having a buffer, which is X% of your sales, will be that cushion where even if you spend more, you already accounted for it as a buffer. You do the same thing for rent, and you do it and you forecast it going forward. As I said, it can be linked to inflation, it can be linked to the revenue growth. So you need to know that your expenses cannot be independent of your revenues. As you scale, as your revenues increase, the cost structure that you have will increase with it. So the third step is the working capital assumptions. So here, from your understanding of the business model that you have, what is the expected number of days that it will take for you to collect your receivables from clients? What is a typical DPO? What is a typical period that suppliers will give you until you pay them back? And how fast is your inventory turning over, for you also to understand how your inventory line will change on the balance sheet. So these are the assumptions that will affect your balance sheet, and we will see others related to CapEx also here. So just to go back to the Excel. So here you need to fill what is the days sales outstanding, what is the payables outstanding, what is the inventory outstanding, and here, so 30 days, it will take you 30 days to be able to collect your receivables from client. Suppliers will give you 60 days typically. These are examples. And then it takes you 3 months for the inventory to be turned over. Some business models, those things don't apply to. So for example, in the case of Luna with Luxeed, they won't have any inventory at the start. But because their business model does not have this at an earlier stage, eventually they will. So for 2024, she will put 0, but once she starts manufacturing and she has inventory on her balance sheet, the 2026 will move to X number of days. So far we have covered the assumptions that you need to build your income statement. We put in the revenues, we put in what is percentage of revenues that you spend on the cost of goods sold. We discussed salaries, we discussed other operating expenses such as rent, such as insurance, such as marketing. So you make an assumption on the depreciation. So for how many years, this is an accounting standard, how many years does your equipment depreciate over, and amortization, so how many years does your intangible, the software, the platform, how many years does it take for it to be amortized. If you're taking on any interest, any loan, then you have a financial expense to have, and then your tax rate also is one of the assumptions. So what is the tax rate prevailing, and you will pay those. So here we've covered the income statement. Again, so many assumptions that are current and for the future. So you have to have the ability to forecast how these things are not only for the coming 12 months, but also for the 5 years down the line. On the balance sheet side, once you decide on those assumptions, then you have a view on your receivables, on your inventory. So this is automatically generated, and on your payables. What's left is those fixed assets. And here you know what is your fixed assets in terms of expenditure gonna look like. So if you know that in 2 years down the road you're going to need to purchase a machine, to purchase a truck, to purchase a company car, this is where it all goes. If you're into more of the software development, probably here you would have a big amount, which is the amount that you have incurred so far to develop the platform or the software that you have. And then you will have continuous maintenance, adding features to the platform, adding enhancement to the website, adding new stuff to the application. And then you will have investments here. How do we fill those investments? And how do they come to the balance sheet? So here, I know that, so in terms of lands and buildings, I have already 5,000, which is a warehouse, let's say, that I own. And I will invest another 5,000. I will need to spend another 5,000. This is what we call CapEx, capital expenditures, as opposed to OpEx, operating expenditures, which are the salaries, marketing, etc. I will need to buy laptops. I will need to buy machinery. I need to buy vehicles. So here are the investments that you put. And you need to know, so in Q4, I'm buying this, and it will cost me 3,000. These will affect your cash flow. So they will affect the balance sheet from on the first level here. And also they will go into your cash flow, if you remember, under investing activities. So any money that you're paying to purchase long-term assets would go into investment activities. Any questions so far? The last thing is the financing activities. So if you know today that you will be receiving a grant that you had applied for, you enter it. If you know that in three years down the road, you will have an equity round and you will be raising capital, you enter it also in the model so that it shows on your model and on your financial statements. These are in details for you. If you want, we will be sharing the template for you. So if you want to apply it, then these are step-by-step procedure. So this is the end. Go ahead.
Tangible assets are CapEx?
Yes, so the salary that you would pay for the developer who's creating your application or your platform, this is something that you have as an asset. So it is CapEx. It shows on your balance sheet. It doesn't go into your income statement. It's not any other salary that you're giving. The salary is actually translating into an asset that you will have on the balance sheet. It has value. You can sell it. So it's a capital expenditure.
So better call it development expenditure than salary.
It's not salary. No, salary, it's for your salespeople, it's for you. But the salary that you are paying specifically to the developer, this is you're acquiring an asset in return, so you capitalize it. Any other question? Yes. شو هن؟ مش البرودكت، عم يسألوا عن البلاتفورم. They're developing a platform. They're developing a software, an application. They're not selling. No. It's their own application, their own software. As I'm يعملوا e-commerce platform, the money that you spend to create this, it will be your intangible. Okay, so the result would be a financial model which is forecasted over 5 years. It has all the details that you need. And investors will look, first of all, on the growth and sales that you have. So looking, how are you growing? How are you scaling up? How are you going from a sales figure of 1 million to 12 million in 4 years, 5 years? What is your gross profit margins looking like? And how are they improving? So you start with 47%. Usually, as you gain efficiency, as you gain experience, you gain efficiency. And these margins need to increase. So here it's working. Your cost of goods sold is dropping from 53% to 35%, and your gross profit margin is increasing from 47% to 65%, which shows that you're becoming, not only you're increasing your sales, but you're becoming even more efficient in producing them.
Is it too optimistic to start directly for 5 years and to start with positive numbers for startups?
It's not always the case. Startups are not always as lucky. For this example, I believe it's a company that is established. Typically, no. The quick answer is no.
The first 3 years are negative.
Most of the times, yes. Then what also the investors are looking at is your OPEX. So here the OPEX is 36% of your sales. So it's eating, the operating expenditures that you have are eating up 39% of your sales. And here it shows that you're also becoming more efficient in terms of operating expenses. And look, the EBITDA would go from, this is the operating profit, it will go from 12% up until 38%. This is where you have managed your operating your OPEX structure, you have controlled your expenses, and the sales figure, the scaling up is helping you to manage these expenses in relative term. And the other thing that we look at is the net profit margin. So a 9% with the 100K to translate into 3 million, 4 million K at a margin of 31%. So this is what the financial model would look like. The next thing is the cash flow. So this is the cash flow forecast that Constantin mentioned repeatedly before. These are, if you remember, the 3 buckets: operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. And this is how it evolves. So the cash at end of year here is a negative 260. And this is a message of we need funding. So we need to either improve within the company itself to optimize, reduce cost, delay investments in order not to be left with a negative cash balance, or that we need here to have some sort of investment, equity, or debt in order to have a positive cash balance. The last thing you do after you run your financial model is to run a sensitivity analysis. So we have put a lot of assumptions. Some of them might be accurate, some of them might be conservative, but what if things go wrong? And what if instead of having your revenues as budgeted, you have a 10% drop in them? So what would be the impact here on EBITDA? So what is the sensitivity of EBITDA, which is the operating profit, if you don't make your revenues as planned? What would be the EBITDA? The budget is telling you that you will have an EBITDA of 8 million. However, if you don't make your revenues and you have a 10% decrease in your revenues, you will end up with a 3.6 million in terms of EBITDA. On the other hand, operating cost, if you don't manage to control your costs as you put it in the budget, and if you have 10% increase in costs, then the 8 million that you have would be reduced to a loss here. So if you have a 10% decrease in revenues coupled with a 10% increase in cost, then you will end up having losses of 3 million. So this is the importance of it. Going back to your question about how you put the assumptions being aggressive, conservative, worst case scenarios. So you run those types of scenarios to be to validate the assumptions and to say, in the worst case scenario, this is what's happening. In the best case scenario, this is what's happening. And these are the numbers that I budgeted here. We do it for EBITDA. We can do it for many measures within the financial statements here. We're doing it for cash flow. So again, revenues not being as projected, operating costs being more than projected, what would be the cash flow figure that I would, the cash balance that I would have to know how to plan for, this is the risk mitigation, basically, the risk management. Any questions? Clear? Is it clear, or is it too complicated? I was not asking for this. I was genuinely asking if it's clear.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a case study. So the case study would be for you to read, and you have 24 hours on it. It's a real life.
This is a company that I've been associated with for the past 10 years. It's based not here, it's based in Ghana. It's one of the leading one in providing access to clean water in rural communities. So the impact that they generate by touching millions of people in rural environments, because access to clean water is a tough issue. So And this, I invited Lama to come. She joined the board. They presented the budget. I'm asking you to look at the budget. You're going to know what the company is. You're going to have the budget in front of you. You'll have the historical data, how much they have generated over the past years. And you are board members. So your decision is, do you approve it? And if you approve it, under which conditions? And what will be other recommendations that you have to the organization? So this is real life company, real life situation. Took place 2 weeks ago. Lama was there. We decided, we asked them whether we could use this as a case study the same way we asked Compost Paradis and we asked Mark from, not Mark, from Mario from Biomass on it. So, and our point is to build up on all of those cases so that you end up learning. So this is not theory, this is actual practices. So these templates, we apply them. All of those things that you're seeing end up being used by most of the companies that we work with. So these are the questions that we have. As a board member, are they going to receive it?
Yes, I will send it tonight so that we can discuss it tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So the questions are easy. As a board member, will you approve the proposed budget for 2024 and under which condition? Number two, what are the growth opportunities that JoySam can embark on to accelerate that transformation journey and amplify the ESG impact? So what should they do? You're here to recommend to them. You will read what they have. It's not too large, it's a few slides. Yeah. So this gives you, what are the risk areas that JoySam might be facing in the future, and what are the related contingency plans? This is a bit of a risk management framework. And as a board member of JoySam, what would be your recommendation on the 2024 key strategic initiative and the related key performance indicators? So what is this? This is their balance scorecard. So they presented the balance scorecard, they present these, and you're here to give feedback. You need to approve a budget or not approve a budget. You need to approve a balance scorecard because this includes the key strategic initiative. So this is the value added that we expect, you should expect from whoever is advising you in terms of helping you, even if it's your at the ideation phase or at the startup phase or at the scale-up phase or at your in the mature phase, it's the same process that we go across the board. JoySam 10 years ago was completely different in terms of the setup. Okay, so this is the, this will put it some clear, and tomorrow morning we're going to start, not tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. Now, for those of you, if you haven't registered, because we're going to issue the certificates, so these will be USG certificates, you need to make sure that your name is there, because if not, you won't get your certificate. You might not care for the certificate, but in case you do, it's always a good thing to have in your CV, because there are very few of these executive programs being implemented. Okay, I want to, Lama and I have been working, and she doesn't like to have compliments, but I think she did a great job in trying to take, for those of you who are not finance experts, to introduce you to this concept, and hopefully with time, so that you are used to it and use it, because it's an essential tool in being able to manage your company and being able to convince investors to join in. So thank you, Lama. Very good. Some of you asked me whether they could get a copy of the book. It's a picture book. It's a picture book with testimonials coming from friends. If some of you are interested, we're happy to have a few of the copies tomorrow here. So where is Michelle? She's probably gone. She's still here. Wow, she's still here. Yeah, she's rushing. So we have actually a dinner organized. Michelle is representing Arc Avenue. So Arc Avenue is the representation of different dimensions of the Arc-en-Ciel model. So this includes La Brocante, it includes a number of other entities that you have. So I'm encouraging you also to see, because this is, it's in the Galaxy Center. It's not a well-known center, so this is, we would like to, so we're having a dinner with 60 people tonight. So we're moving from here. I'm also be signing the book, because I had about 80 friends contributing to this book. Michelle, you want to say a few things? And you are, of course, welcome to visit, because what she has, and we're trying to come up and trying to see how we could transform her business model so as to have greater scalability and greater growth opportunities in it. She's an NGO, so she is non-profit, same approach that we have with the others that we will do with her. So these are examples of the work that we do, not only for-profit, but also for non-profit organization. And I know a few of you are non-profit, and will be benefiting. So take, she has really great, it's a great place, great showcase. Beside La Brocante, what are the others? Mounet, so there is Mounet, Ceramique, La Boutique and Artisanat. So it's about art craft, it's about food in terms of Mounet, it's about Brocante, which is old furniture. And all of those revenues go into supporting either disadvantaged people, handicapped people across Lebanon, across country, across the religious groups on it. So this is also this is the one page of publicity that we have for her, and she's also hosting us for dinner. So So reach out to her. She's going to be here tomorrow. Great initiative and great support. Thank you for your patience. بعرف إنه منا هينة. We'll look forward to seeing you. The good news is tomorrow is the last one, and then you have a 3 days weekend to digest all. ألف عافية لكم. بنشوفكم بكرة. Thank you.